camera's off. Well, it wouldn't be today's show if there wasn't issues. Because seemingly everything has gone wrong in the past hour. But we're live. It's working. The show is running. Everyone looks great. How are you guys doing? Everyone having a Zeke, have you been jumping into the cyberpunk world? Have you been playing it offline? Okay.
I have indeed.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping that we are able to get to some conversation of it. We'll have at least probably 30 minutes or 45 minutes towards the end, but we're pulling an audible here. Twitch is doing a town hall, which I think goes live in about 3 minutes. They, I think, tweeted about this last week, but we kind of have heard some things that there are going to be things to discuss.
Cat. 1 second. Sorry.
Oh God.
What's it? Oh God, what's it doing?
It's like one of those TV test beeps. Like this is a automated test. Yeah, it's gone.
Stop. Okay, I'm sorry. That was Cirilla of Sintra. Cirilla of Sintra.
My immediate thought was like, oh God, the audio still messed up.
Yeah,
but I saw Zeke react. Yeah.
This is only a cat. If this were a real cat.
It's exactly what it sounded
what that was Twitch getting the button ready for the stuff you're about to say.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say anything. There are things in here that I think we're going to be hearing and seeing in chat and on Twitter, and I'm sure people are going to want our opinions on it. So rather than just getting that stuff flyby information via chat, we're just going to watch it because we could do that because they're streaming it live. And
we are probably going to be asked a lot about the things that are going to be said at this, most likely, because that's what always happens during Twitch town halls. So it's best to get the right info out.
Indeed. Zeke, did you get you seem like you've got some, is everything going wrong?
Yeah, my monitor, one of my monitors was blinking on and off, and I don't know why.
Look, man.
It stopped for now, but I hope it's not going to be a persistent problem.
Tech issues are a contagious and real problem.
Yes.
What are they doing here? Okay, we got music coming in from the Twitch stream. We got like some...
I'm debating on whether I should even have the chat open.
I'm not.
On the Twitch
full disclosure, Erin will be in this. She is the host of this, so I'm not going to open the chat.
Ad.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how that works. I'm not sure what that means. I guess I'll just be really, really, really critical of the host then, and just give you all my opinions on everything that they're saying.
Go. Perfect.
Yeah. What is this? Is this prepared? Oh, look at that. We look so great. The drop frames thing is fucked because they used a white background, but it's okay. We'll figure it out. Maybe it'll look different here in just a sec. Apparently this was also a little longer than one would expect. So,
how long is it?
They haven't officially said, so I'm not going to officially say, but let's say long. Let's say there might be 30 minutes of cyberpunk discussion. Yeah. It's supposed to be pretty long.
Everyone.
That's not enough.
Welcome to the Twitch town hall. Wherever you're joining us from, we are so glad.
I'm literally waving at her and at her.
My name is Erin Wayne, and I'm the senior director.
Oh, I'm not getting sound. Should we bring it up?
Yeah. And I'm thrilled to be leading us through a deep dive into 3 big issues we know at the top of mind for many of you: DMCA, trust and safety, and ads. Joining me today to share our plans around these topics are 3 of the leaders here at Twitch. So don't forget that they're sticking around for a Q&A section at the end. You can submit your questions by flagging it with !ask in the chat. That will flag it to our moderators. We'll submit them to the teams working behind the scenes, and you will have a chance to have them answered directly by the experts. Before we jump in, I wanted to take a quick minute to speak to the tension in our virtual room. As someone who started as a streamer myself on Twitch almost a decade ago before I joined as an employee, I know that when you choose to build your community here, it's because you want to grow that community by sharing the things that you love.
Don't put your hands up
like we're falling. You expect our help, rightly so. with managing your channel, with building new and better features to improve the experience for you and your viewers,
encased in ice
and by
in Star
understanding
Wars,
how to
like
grow and monetize your viewership. This year has been challenging for everyone, but the last few months have been especially hard for streamers. You're counting on Twitch, and in some instances, we've let you down. One of the reasons I started and still work here is because I, like my coworkers, believe in our community-first company value. All of us here know that we can do better. We're dedicated to doing better, and we want you to know that we definitely have your back. And I hope personally, coming out of this town hall, that that's clear. As we navigate a global pandemic and its implications for how we come together as a global community, moments like this town hall are more important.
Can you put us back up just one
to
for 1
ensure
second?
that we're moving forward with your needs and feedback in mind, we have to be able to get together. We have to listen to your feedback, and we definitely have to have an open conversation about how we're here.
That was so bad on
Twitch
so many
every day
levels
to make that better.
I know.
And with that, I want to introduce our CEO, Emmett Shearer, to share a little bit more about why we're here today.
Robots up early.
Thanks.
Hi, Emmett. Yeah.
I want to thank everyone who's attending this for coming to this town hall. It's really appreciated that we have a community that shows up for us to talk to us and give us feedback.
Yeah, we've hosted town halls as far back as I can remember. I know definitely as long as I've been
he
at
looked
Twitch.
more or
and
less trustworthy without the bow tie.
At PAX, and then we started doing Twitch
I feel like
tours,
this
and then
is
we eventually
like
had TwitchCon. And now
I feel like they were like,
age of
should we wear the bow
COVID,
tie? And they're
we're
like,
doing
no,
these
we
town
need
halls
real
virtually.
Emmett.
So it's nice for us to be able to have some way to share with the community what we have
Judging
going
by that
on.
neck, man,
It's been
I
a
bet
really
he's
tough
like
year for us
Robin
here at Twitch,
Williams
quite frankly,
carpet, like
in terms
all
of our
over.
communication, especially around heavy topics like DMCA and ads that we're going to be talking about today.
He sips whiskey in the morning.
I think in the early days of Twitch, we could handle a lot of our issues very much one-off. We could make a customized decision for each case, and I really loved that. I thought that was one of the best things about Twitch was we tried to judge every case on the merits. And while it's been incredibly exciting to see how big the Twitch community has gotten, as we've gotten bigger, we can't always do that kind of direct, individualized response that we'd like to as fast as we'd like to for everyone. When we got started, we were outnumbered, but these days there are 100,000 of you for every one of us. And I really don't think abandoning the approach of making sure we respond appropriately and contextually and do the right thing in each case is right. I think that's a high bar, but it's the bar I want Twitch to be held to. And at the same time, we're going to miss it because it's hard. And so I know we have to work to automate, to make things, to make things more scalable. But at the same time, I don't want to lose that individualized contextual decision-making.
Yeah, you mentioned there being like 100,000 to 1, and I know that ratio really hits home for us. You and I have done interviews, and we talk to people pretty regularly about what makes Twitch special. And I think, to your point, we definitely have to scale, but we want to maintain what keeps us special. And I think for us, that's our human component, because in a spot where other companies or services would have or already have automated things like customer support or trust and safety, we've tried to be really mindful that when we scale, we do it in a way that still allows for us to have that human connection. So when a creator submits a partner application, a real human reads it. When you file a moderation report, a real person reviews it. And when things like videos on social go up highlighting the really cool things that a community is doing, a team of people work together to make sure that those streamers were recognized for the things that we're doing. And part of that is that we care a whole lot. We come from the community, we care about the community, and we want to make sure that they feel heard in all of those instances by a real person. But the other side of that is that we are real people and we are real humans. And sometimes we mess things up and we get them wrong. And we've done that a few times this year.
Yeah, I think that being a company that tries to bring the human connection and the human touch is a huge strength for Twitch. I think it's one of our biggest strengths.
It's pretty candid,
and I think it also sometimes can be a weakness. It's common for companies and people that your biggest strength is both a strength and in some ways a weakness. And of course, there's like so many times I wish we did a better job. And sometimes it's just we made a mistake, I made an error of judgment, or we just didn't know. We made, we made an honest error. But sometimes I actually think we did something really good, or we built something really cool, and then we screwed some small part of it up, or we dropped the ball communicating about it, and people walked away feeling like we didn't care. And I feel like that's the part that hurts the most for me, because people thinking that we're not there to make things better for them. And I want them to know that we are. And I think that the more that we can have that connection and have that faith, the better off we are. And it means that we get the feedback too. One thing that I've always been really proud of the Twitch community is, how much everybody complains. I know that may be a strange thing to say, but I appreciate everyone's critical feedback as well as their positive feedback, because those complaints are how we know how to keep making Twitch better, because we know it's not done. We're nowhere near done. It's very much still the early days for Twitch. And I just know whenever I walk around Twitch and I talk to all the other employees, that like everyone else at Twitch, including and myself, we're here for the streamers, for the viewers. We're here because we want to make it awesome. And we're also running a business, but we're streamers, we're viewers, we're people who want Twitch to be great. And it's not always easy to make it right, but I know that that's what's top of mind, and it gets brought up in every meeting. It gets brought up on every Slack discussion, every email thread. That's what the lens we're using. There might be 2,000 of us now.
There's audio just got weird.
Managers to customer support, partnership people, sales, marketing, legal people. Like there's a huge team that makes Twitch work.
I think it was just a bitrate drop.
2,000 people seems incredibly large to me now. But at the same time, there's millions and millions of people to support. And so given the scope of what we're trying to tackle, it doesn't even feel that like we have that many people sometimes. So today you're going to be hearing from Jeremy, Sarah, and Mike, 3 people who are in that group of people who care deeply about streamers, care deeply about viewers, and who work specifically on the topics we're discussing. But behind all of them are hundreds of other people making it happen. And I know that with that number of people, it can be frustrating how slow things go. It can be frustrating for us how slow things can go. But we are working on making it better.
Yeah, you mentioned that we're going to be talking with Mike today. Mike Mitten is one of our heads of monetization, so he's going to be talking about us with ads. And specifically, one of the big things we're talking today is current state of ads, the future of ads. And that's something that we've experimented with since day one. Since Twitch has existed, we've always thought about what ads could look like on Twitch. And this year, obviously, we heard lots of feedback that a few things that we tried didn't land. We didn't get them right. But I always find it really interesting that we aren't more vocal about one of the ways that we operate, which is our experiment to decide mindset. So if you've never heard that term and you're at home and you're wondering what that means, experiment to decide is our mentality around running public experiments and regularly putting out products that aren't finished. And we do that on purpose. We do it so that when we go into the final phases of production for those products, and when we move forward with how we're going to pivot or update those products, it's based on feedback that we've collected from streamers and viewers and moderators and developers during those experimental phases, so that the final product, the final version, is exactly what you wanted it to be and what you need and what we know will help you succeed. So sometimes those experiments aren't great. Sometimes they're wonderful, creative, and IRL were built out of feedback and things that we heard the community needed. Chat was redesigned after 1 million people almost broke it playing Twitch Plays Pokemon. And so as our CEO and somebody who works on overseeing a lot of experiments on Twitch, can you talk to us about really what that mindset means to you and kind of how that impacts what happens when we release these products that don't give us the best feedback?
I mean, ultimately, the only judge of whether a product is good is whether or not it works for streamers and viewers on Twitch. And like, we can guess, we can talk to people, we can get input, but it's really hard to tell what's going to work. In fact, I think anyone who's ever worked on an internet product or any kind of product will tell you it's impossible. No one knows what's going to work. And so you have to try things, you have to experiment. And some of the things you try aren't going to work. But that's the only iterative way to move forward and to build things out. And sometimes in retrospect, it seems like, oh my God, it was so obvious. How could we possibly have missed that? But I don't know anyone at any company that manages to produce products without making mistakes or building things where V1 sucked. And I don't necessarily see launching something that's V1 that isn't great yet as a problem. Of course, we want everything to be great when we launch it, but sometimes you miss the mark, and that's just part of life. And I think the thing that's changed for Twitch, the most important thing that I think I'm struggling with right now, I think we need to change our approach a little bit on, is that it used to be if we launched something and it worked great for 99% of our community, that meant 10 people got a bad experience. Now, if something works great, we launch something and it is awesome for 99% of you, 2% of 2% of Twitch is now tens of thousands of streamers. And those tens of thousands of streamers have a bad experience on something that is, we know, super important to their life. And having tens of thousands of people have a bad experience when we got something 99% right means that we have to be a lot more careful when we experiment. That when we start rolling something out, it's important we bear in mind the damage it can do when we do something that's even mostly a good idea, but not quite there. And it's obviously even worse if what we do isn't 99% right. And so we're going to keep experimenting in public. We're going to keep trying stuff out. We're going to continue to appreciate your feedback. So please keep sending us your feedback, whether via email, via user voice, via customer support, via your partner manager. I will say that we also,
you guys know what user voice is?
We read a lot of other feedback
it's,
as well.
Like industry. It's not just Twitch. It's like an industry
thing. And we're also
thing.
going to be.
It's like a forum essentially,
like
an open forum.
More in
that a lot of like big tech companies use.
Betas, and more in terms of transparency as we do these kinds of experiments when we can.
I think
so that
it might just be a
when we
Twitch
get something 99% right, we are protecting the 1% of people it didn't work for, and everyone is having a good experience on Twitch. So as much as I regret experiments that didn't work out, I don't regret that we tried it, and I still think experimenting is the right approach. But we are going to, as we've gotten bigger and as the blast radius of mistakes gets bigger and bigger for Twitch, we are going to be updating our approach and trying to do it in a thoughtful way where we're still running experiments, but where people don't have the negative experience from them.
Yeah, I hope that I really, really like the way that we do that, especially thinking about how we build them and not just coming out with what we think is a good idea, but really taking that feedback. And I hope that we always continue to make products and improvements with the community's involvement. You touched a little bit there on how our teams rely on feedback, and that can be things like reports generated from feedback from creators submitted to their account managers, user voice, all of that. All those paths of feedback are turned into regular reports that are sent out. And I know that I personally take time every single week to read all of those reports so that I understand what's happening in the community. But I think it'd be really valuable for people to know what your personal experience with has been, staying connected to what the community is doing and how you get that feedback and what happens when you get it.
Yeah, I get a lot of people reaching out. I get people reaching out via email.
So far, I think the biggest thing from this is like
people's
coming
posts,
out there apologizing, but
they're on Twitter or
they don't
Reddit,
actively
or they're
announce things or change things in this.
Or they're doing a Twitch
this is going to be lost on
Twitch.
Pretty much everyone.
I go through and I listen to that feedback.
Corpos!
And sometimes I think they've hit the mark exactly.
Let's talk about
Cyberpunk.
Cyberpunk.
I have a lot of questions, and I wish that I could go through every single person who sends feedback and give it the time it deserves, which is, a full, back and forth learning what was going on and getting the full context so I can help turn it into action. And I can't always do that, obviously, because there's too many pieces of feedback to respond to, but we do listen. I think everyone at Twitch at this point, probably at some point, has gotten an Emmett email forwarded that's like, hey, what are we doing about this? Or is this a real issue? How can we approach this? And I know that I'm not the only person who does that. I know that people across Twitch are reading, learning, thinking about what, the input people are giving. And we find all kinds of things that we would never have known, both opportunities to do great new stuff and mistakes we've made that we never could have found if you weren't telling us about it. So, so thank you. I really appreciate the input and the help. It's how we make Twitch better.
Yeah, the feedback is one of the things that I missed the most about us being in quarantine and working from home, because typically we have E3 and Twitch tours and TwitchCon and other conventions and events where we can host feedback sessions or roundtables or panels or bring creators into the office and have them participate in a number of feedback sessions or talk about what we might be building or want to. And we've not been able to do that. So I'm really glad that we're doing this Twitch Town Hall. I'm glad that people are utilizing the user voice much more frequently now, because we want that feedback. It's not just something we're like, give us your feedback. We really do want it and we need it, because especially when we're at home, we rely on that to make sure that we're going through everything the way that we should. So please, everyone, continue doing that. I hope that we will continue doing these, whether virtually or in person, into the future for sure.
I really miss TwitchCon and other events because I get to meet a bunch of our streamers, a bunch of our viewers, moderators in person. And there's just a different level of learning and connection you can get from someone, and depth you can get to in person, I think. But it's been really, really positive to get some amount of that replaced online. That's why we're here doing this today with all of you.
Yeah, and really quick before we jump into the town hall, I know that today is primarily focused around DMCA, ads, and trust and safety, but we got a lot of feedback on the user voice and on social media, specifically about discovery on Twitch, including identity tags. And I know that this is a topic that's incredibly meaningful to you. You and I have talked about it in the past. And so I was hoping that we could spend some time just chatting quickly about that before we get into the main segment of the town hall.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't sort of aware of the issue, there's a large number of people who would really like there to be a tag for trans people on Twitch, so that they can share their identity, but also equally importantly, so that other people looking for trans streamers can discover them and they can form a community. And tags were developed for exactly this purpose, to figure out what's going on stream, ways to group people, ways to find people. And when we launched tags, it replaced a product called communities. And communities had these sort of sense of identity communities that people had formed. Now, communities had a bunch of other issues, like the fact that it wasn't really used, unlike tags. But when we did that, we actually launched an LGBTQIA tag as an experiment to see how does it work to have an identity tag. And we had the intention to learn from that and to quickly iterate into a better solution for identity tags. Obviously, it's taken longer than we would have liked, although we still believe in that direction and believe in that goal, because we think that people being able to express their identity on Twitch is a great thing. And people being able to define other people who share an identity with them is a great thing. As we were looking to launch new identity tags like the trans tag, specifically, we ran into two problems. First problem we found is that the usage of the tags can often lead to increased harassment for streamers, if especially in vulnerable identity groups. And we wanted to make sure that we'd tried to solve that so people aren't accidentally opting into that kind of harassment. That's not a positive thing for the community or for those streamers. And so we're looking to solve that problem. And then I think equally importantly, on top of that, we didn't want to be the arbiters of identity. I don't think, this is actually, I think it's very important to me personally as a value, that it's Twitch, that it's any person at Twitch, it's myself or anyone who should get to tell you which identities are valid, which identities deserve a tag, which identities don't deserve tags. That's a decision that has to be up to each individual person. How do you identify? What tag do you want to use? And so if we're out there picking which tags deserve to have a tag, there will always be someone who feels left out by that. And so I challenged the team to come up with a product for tags that would let people identify themselves on Twitch however they wanted to, protect themselves while they were doing that, and allow viewers to find streamers who had those identities. And that's a harder challenge than you might think. There's a lot of nuance and difficulty building a tag system that drives discovery effectively, and that also allows for self-identity, and that can be moderated effectively. And so our discoverability teams have been hard at work doing this. I'm really proud of the plan they put together. I think they've really risen to the challenge. And we're hoping to release this feature this year in 2020, but we've been working with creators before we launch it, and we've been working with the community, and we realized that some of the assumptions we'd made in designing the product weren't good enough. And so we went back to the drawing board, and we started redesigning it. And I think we've made a lot of progress. I think the new plan is great. We're going to share more details with you early next year. And I think that's going to be a huge step forward. And of course, would we like to have done this faster? Absolutely. But as we were just saying in the experiment to decide side of things, getting things wrong has a high blast radius now. And I'm just imagining launching something and then someone who has an identity being like, well, where's my representation here? Or someone opting into using it and getting harassed. And I don't want that either. And so I'm glad we took the time to do it right. I wish we'd prioritized it up, getting it done faster, but I'm excited to see what the team builds.
Yeah, in full transparency, I am really glad that we're actually covering this today, because I know that there's been work behind the scenes and the community has given us feedback that they don't feel listened to, or that they don't understand what's happening or what's taking so long. And so it was really important, I know, for you and I to talk about this, and I'm sure for the community to hear what our thoughts are, what are we actually planning, like what's taking so long, so that they can realize that it is important to us. And we do care very deeply about having an experience and a product that is good for everybody when they use it. It doesn't lead to any negative experiences. So to add to that insight as well, we are going to be sharing more about the new product once it's available. And in the new year, we're going to be hosting a creator camp session specifically on discovery, including insights from product experts and a little bit more about identity tags. So with that, thank you, Emmett, so much for joining us. We just covered a whole lot. We haven't even gotten into the main part of the town hall yet. So I think this is probably a good time for us to do that.
All right, I'm excited to leave you with a really stellar lineup of Twitch leaders, product experts who can speak to all of this stuff in incredible depth. And I just want to, again, just say thank you. We know you have a choice in streaming solutions, and I'm really happy that people choose Twitch.
God, dude.
We're really grateful.
He did the
for,
telemarketer exit?
Your patronage of our service. I'm really excited to get to do this with you.
He's not wrong, but
I know, yeah.
You know, I think sometimes people make fun of us saying things like, hold us to a high bar, and they feel like we don't hit that bar. Hold us to a high bar isn't about us being perfect. We're going to miss sometimes. It's about having that expectation. And I'm proud to be working with a community that has really high expectations for us. I have very high expectations for us. And I'm really excited to get to share all of this with you. So thank you again. Thank you for being with us over this time. And with that, please enjoy the rest of the town hall.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Emmett, and thank you again for everybody joining us so far. Before we move into the main portion of the town hall, I wanted to talk about what you can expect us to
I feel like that whole
today.
section would have been more
First, we're
impactful
gonna
if it was about a
dive
quarter of the
into
length.
with Jeremy
it
Forrester.
was definitely a
who is
little
our
long.
head
They
of
tried to
creator
cover like
products, and
every
he's going to go
issue that
through
people
where
have
we're
on
at
Twitter
It was
with
a
them.
lot
DMCA,
more concise.
talk about some new
Yeah.
products that are releasing
And it wasn't like a prepared
literally
statement.
so soon. Stay tuned.
Yeah,
We
I
wanted
didn't-
to make
and
sure
cover what
it
we
was
got
off the
planned
cuff
going
and
into
it sounded
2021.
organic. And
Then we'll be
Emmett,
joined
so
by
There was
There
a
Sarah
lot
Clemens,
of talk in there
our
that was
COO,
just
to
like
recap plans
vacuous.
for
And
moderation,
it
talk
wasn't
about
really
the
like
recent
going anywhere.
updates to our
Yeah, I
hateful
mean,
conduct and
a lot of
harassment
it
policy, and
is
cover what to
a
expect
lot of
in
it is
terms
lost
future
words if there's no
enforcement when
action.
it comes
So
to trust
hopefully
and
this is
safety.
the action.
Finally,
too.
Mike
Yeah.
Mitten, who we mentioned earlier, who oversees
Aaron did well, though.
monetization products, will take us through the future of ads on Twitch and announce some really exciting updates that are in the works. There's new announcements, guys. We heard you. You want to have announcements. We have announcements today, so keep watching. We are going to feature questions from the community sporadically during the town hall as they come up through each section, but we are also, again, dedicating the
Now
entire
announcing
section
twice
at
the
end
ads.
solely for
Yeah!
Q&A. So
Woo!
be sure to submit your questions in chat using !ask so that our teams can work behind the scenes, log those questions, and get us all of
This
the
one's weird
that
because
you
it's
need.
hard for me to
We will
be
get to as many
like a
possible
co-streamer to
questions
like
as we
make
can
jokes
today, but
about
we
it
may not be able
because
to
I
cover every
know
single
some
question.
of the
There's
things
a lot of
coming.
you, and
And
only
so,
so much time.
like, I
Oftentimes
can't
we
make
get
a
a lot of questions
joke.
that are around,
Yeah, I want
can you build
reaction.
blank?
I
Have you
want to
thought
see
about
like
building
100%
blank? Would you
amped
ever
up.
build
Yeah.
blank?
You know it's
And
coming. That
although
just
we
means
would
bigger
love
reaction.
to
Okay.
talk
All
to
right.
you about
I'll
all
work
of your
on it. I'll try.
ideas, if you
I'll try. If
specifically
If you don't make
want
live
to
stream
chat
fails
about
during this,
an
I'm gonna be
idea
pissed.
or something that
I
you
wanna-
want us to work on,
I want to see you
also
do
head
meme
over
reactions
to
like that one that guy like
twitch.uservoice.com.
Well, I've
Log
been
your
needing a new
idea.
chair. I've got some
You
holes in
will
it,
be
so I
sure
might just
that
like
that
pick the
information
chair up
and
and
that
slam it on the
feedback gets to
ground
the
and
right
just see
team.
what happens.
So
You know?
we're going to jump into
Better yet, slam it on Z.
We're going to spend the next
Okay.
30 minutes
all right.
Throw it
discussing
over
new
me.
I mean, I could
information
throw it
about
straight through this
DMCA
wall
with
and
the
it would show up
community,
on the
which
Twitch
means that
stream
we're
if you
not
would
going to be providing an overview of copyright
slam a
law
chair on
or a
Aaron.
refresher on Twitch's
Like,
DMCA
run up behind her,
guidelines. With that said, it is still
that might
super
break
important
COVID
that you
compliance, man.
understand
I don't know if I
both
can.
and how those may affect your channel on Twitch and anywhere else that you publish your content.
Virus really just
If you
ruins
have
everything. Doesn't it?
questions
You know,
about
you can't smash
copyright
chairs
law
over
or
people with the virus. It's
DMCA,
fucked up.
please check out all of the recent materials we've published. There is
if
a
Twitch
blog
like
on blog.
blows up, folds, goes
We have
under, whatever.
creator
I think
camp
Aaron
sessions
still has a job
twitch.tv/creator
telling
camp
people super
and
bad
information
news
available on
in a form they could take.
help.twitch.tv.
Yeah.
I also wanted to just take a quick second to reiterate
cancer
that you
has
should not play
metastasized,
recorded
Chan.
music on your stream
You have 2 months left to
unless you
live.
own all of the
Good
rights
Lord.
in the music
Wow.
or you have permission from the necessary rights holder. So all of the disclaimers, we're ready to jump into DMCA.
Are we gonna be streaming all of this? I think
head
as long
of
as it
products at
pertains
Twitch,
to
is here to help us
these.
Yeah,
talk
a good
about the
portion.
tools
I
his
think
team is
that
building
there's
to provide
Like,
additional
I think-
Should be good stuff
assurances to
here.
help you
Yes,
avoid
I-
copyright
I
infringement.
think
We had
this
to
is
get
new
through
stuff coming up.
Content that you stream and
I
share
know there's a
on
Q&A at
Twitch.
the end as
Welcome,
well,
Jeremy.
so we might not
Thanks, Aaron.
stream
Glad
that,
to be here.
but we'll see.
Cool.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're in the hot seat now. So let's just kick it right off with admitting
Welcome.
that as a streamer, understanding your channel's current risk and standing under DMCA guidelines is at best incredibly complicated. And the tools that Twitch has to help creators in these areas are not good enough. Specifically, I personally understand why in absence of other solutions, but why we said this, but it was still really hard to watch Twitch tell creators that their primary defense against DMCA was just to delete all of their VODs and clips. When they deleted their content and we watched them delete their content, it was literal years of hard work and all of the memories that they've built with their communities just gone. And it felt really awful. It did not feel good.
Yeah, you're right. I'm part of a number of communities on Twitch, and I saw firsthand just how devastating it was to lose all of that content on the community and streamers. It's not a recommendation we would have made if there was an option that made more sense in those circumstances. What I can tell you, though, is that we've doubled down on our efforts to help you better navigate copyrights and content on your channel. And our product roadmap prioritizes features that improve the creator experience in the following areas. So 1, music on your channel and streaming with music. And 2, managing content on your channel. And number 3, how you track copyright claims on the platform. I also wanted to mention that although our strategy follows a multi-pronged approach, each update on its own will make the experience a little bit better for creators. We won't wait until all of the updates in each area are complete before we're shipping them to you. As soon as an update is ready, we'll make it available to the community.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I'm glad to know, I'm sure the community is glad to know that this is a big priority for your team, not just now, but also carrying throughout the year as we implement new and future products. So I think everyone's eager to learn, like, what does that mean? So let's start at the top with music and then work our way through that list. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that works for me.
Cool. So starting with music, earlier this year, Twitch released Soundtrack, a tool that gives creators access to music that's already licensed to stream on Twitch, so that as a streamer, you can play music during your live broadcast without it violating copyright. We also published educational materials for creators on Creator Camp and on the Help Center.
Just to address chat, by the way, this is kind of important because a lot of viewers watch VODs. And what they're talking about right now is why we don't have VODs turned on in many cases.
So
notification. When they develop these tools,
so as you mentioned,
we can hopefully put
really
our VODs back on.
Soundtrack is the
that, is
audio
directly
technology that we built. The music from Soundtrack doesn't transfer over to the clips and VODs, so you can share, the music-free version of your content wherever you want. We heard this technology is useful for streamers who independently license music on their live streams and not their recorded content. So we've been integrating the technology into other streaming applications so it can be accessible to more creators. Just this past Monday, it was included in OBS 26.1, which was released, and in Q2 it'll be integrated into Twitch Studio, and
which is not really a solution.
And to be clear, that is not to help streamers circumvent securing rights for copyrighted material. So those are there to help you. You should still
Aaron.
only use content that you have rights to stream. They're just there to help you as added insurances to ensure that if anything accidentally slips through,
a few days
that
ago,
you're covered.
about
So that reminds
different
me
audio
on
channel
that case when we're
stuff
talking about
and-
Twitch tools, we do have an upcoming Creator Camp session that's live on twitch.tv/creatorcamp on December 22nd. The title of that stream is Copyrights and Managing Your Content,
It's like
which
you
includes
can
more
upload VODs with no
information
music.
about the tools
So it's just
specifically
like
that Twitch
silence
offers
for the first
you
10
to
minutes
help
of my
manage your content.
stream.
Yeah.
We have one question. Are you ready for it? So when we get on Twitter all the time. That question is, and I know everyone's going to be like, yes, answer the question. Can Twitch pay for site-wide licensing like other sites?
Wow, just right out the gate.
Yeah, so we do pay organizations around the world like ASCAP and BMI in the US, JazzRack in Japan, and SACEM in France for public performance licenses. These licenses allow creators to perform music live to their communities. This is similar to a live performance you would see in an IRL club or at music venues. But most of what happens on Twitch is ephemeral. And our service was built to enable connections through live shared experiences. And this differentiates us a lot from other video online sites who focus on video on demand. These services have agreements that reflect their primary on-demand nature. On-demand videos are more likely to be considered a substitute for listening to music on a streaming service like Spotify, and it comes with commensurate cost. Twitch, by contrast, offers a predominantly live, interactive, and unpredictable experience, which is fundamentally distinct from on-demand and implicates different rights. So while we're open to partnering with labels and our agreements have to reflect
he has to read this off screen. A highly legal issue.
Both Twitch and creators.
I hope he is reading
That
this
said,
off screen.
we are actively speaking to major record labels about potential additional agreements that will be appropriate for the Twitch service. We're approaching these conversations thoughtfully and in consideration of our creator community, because we know that the construct
just go out there and make some shit
agreements with
up,
our
Jeremy. You don't
services
need to read
often
it.
use revenue earned by the creators to pay the record labels. The thing is, the vast majority of our creators aren't adding recorded music to their streams. And if a creator does have the music in their stream, is it okay for the label to get all of the revenue earned during an 8-hour-long stream when it only included 30 seconds of music? These are the types of questions we're thinking about because they can have a substantial impact on what it means to stream on Twitch. So we hear you, and we're open-minded to new structures that could work for Twitch's unique service, but we also want to ensure we're not compromising your long-term economics as a result. These agreements may take some time to materialize and may never happen at all if we can't reach an agreement that works for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, and it will come with costs and trade-offs.
Yeah, it's definitely an incredibly complicated,
That's probably the most
blunt
way
thing to
they've
work
answered
through.
that.
So I'm really glad to hear that we are working on it and we are having those conversations. There's another question that we got on Twitter. This one also about licensing, but specifically as it relates to soundtrack.
It's basically like no right now. For now. No for now.
Soundtrack
the answer is no. You're not going to change a 50, 60-year thing overnight, right? Like,
this has
plagued every industry to ever exist that uses music. It's not something they're going to solve.
Provide music for your live stream
also, they're not a Facebook where they just have billions lying around. I mean, they're fighting to try to get revenue and stuff as it is, so it's not like they can just throw millions to billions of dollars at this stuff, unfortunately.
It'd
be nice.
Yeah, the chat response is, but Amazon. Yeah, Amazon doesn't.
Amazon bought Twitch to make money, not put money into it. Amazon bought Twitch because they're a megalith organization that wants to make money.
And the other thing is, in a lot of ways, Amazon uses that stuff to protect themselves because they create their own media
setups. So it's difficult for me to give you specific configuration instructions right now, but we do have.
Also a good way to think about it is, what would that really get Amazon?
And we recommend
like they would have to spend all of that money. What's the return on that? Nothing. It's not like it would encourage more money for them. You know what I mean? Like again, Twitch to Amazon is just a mechanism to earn more money. If they had to put millions into it, they want to get millions back, and that's not what licensing music would do at all.
Check out the link that you're
they're not.
We have one more
here to come save Twitch. They're here to make money off Twitch.
Before we move on, so you want to answer that?
Harsh reality.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Cool.
Did they integrate Amazon Music?
Can I just get permission to stream music from the artist directly? Actually, I think I can answer that one because I get it all the time, so I'm happy to answer it. One of the beautiful things
So are you
about
saying
social
it's not
media
worth
is
it to
that
implement
you
those
can
things? That's
connect,
exactly what I'm
sometimes
saying.
To Amazon,
directly
it's not
with
worth it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
artists
what
and
I'm saying.
musicians.
It's not
However,
worth it
it's
to Amazon to
totally
do that.
possible for an artist to say that they're giving you a license or that they're okay with you streaming their music, but they actually don't have the authority to make that decision or make that call. And it's likely because another party, like the record label or a music publisher, actually controls the rights to that content. So rather than take social media or DMs or emails,
So couldn't they hire
directly
music
at face
producers to
value,
make their own
I would
music?
highly encourage, and it is up to you
I mean,
as a content creator and a streamer to
Sure.
make sure that you do your homework and
I
ensure
mean,
that you have
I'm
permission
doing
from the
that
actual
myself
license
because they're
holder
not,
when
and
you
I
are
don't think
feeding
they're
that
ever going to.
content on your channel.
Again, you have to
So
think like
now that we've
every
covered music,
dollar
and
that
answered
they
some
put
questions
into
again,
Twitch,
keep asking your
they
questions in
want a
chat by
dollar
using
back or
exclamation point
more.
ask.
That's
But
how
I
these
think we
big
should move on to
companies
the
think.
next focus
They're not going to
of
put
your
money
team,
in
Jeremy,
unless
which
they
is
can get
managing
money out.
content on your
So
channel.
if it's,
We
it doesn't
all
matter
know
if it's
that
better
the
for the
tools
platform or
currently
better for
available to
streamers.
help
I mean,
manage
think about it.
VODs and
Twitch
clips could
passes this stuff for
definitely
the
use
streamers
some
to deal
work.
with
They are
anyway.
not fully sufficient.
So like, if
And I am
anything,
really
like that
excited
would
for
just be
you
them
to
putting a
talk
bunch of money
about
in
the
to get
tools that
something
you
back
guys
that they
are
don't even
building
get
in this
back.
area.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, I did want to let you know about a product update that was released just before we started the town hall. So now those who are assigned the role of editor on your channel can access the clips library so they can help you review and delete clips as needed. But that's
this
not
is
enough. Our current options for deleting clips are fairly extreme. You can either review each clip and delete it individually or delete all the clips at once. Both options are not ideal, particularly if you have hundreds, thousands, or hundreds of thousands of clips to review. It can take a really long time. So to fix this, we're going to build functionality that lets you sort and delete clips by date, game, or view count. We expect to roll this out in the second half of the year. I know that sounds like a long time, and I wish we could get this to you sooner. But in order to build this, we have to make some significant updates to our clips infrastructure, which will take some time to complete. I can assure you we're working urgently on this, and we've added more resources against it. But even with that, it will take time. Longer than I want, longer than you want, for sure.
Yeah. So just to clarify, today, editors can help manage clips. It's already out. It's already there.
Yes.
Right.
I haven't checked with the team specifically, but I hope so.
We were told. I know that streamers have been asking for editors to have similar permissions across both clips and VODs. It was a little disjointed because they had some access, but not all. So really happy to know that that improvement is there and is rolling out today. So there was a hidden gem on that slide that is something we've released today as well to help streamers manage their VOD libraries. We snuck it in there, so let's just talk about it now, Jeremy. What was also on that slide?
Yeah, so talking about VODs, so today creators only have one option for managing their VODs, which is review and delete them all individually. This puts them in a really tough situation because there's obviously potential risk in keeping an unreviewed VOD in your channel.
Is that already available?
But it also takes time to review the content of each VOD. To help, we're rolling out another update today that lets you select an unpublished VOD, so they're not visible on your channel but not gone forever. We'll work on expanding this functionality so you can select a batch of VODs, unpublish, or delete them if you prefer. We hope to have this in the creator dashboard by the end of Q1.
Yeah, that's awesome. All good updates coming to both clips and VODs for sure. So on the topic of managing your content and content management, let's say that some music or content slips through while I'm live. I obviously want to remove that specific content from my channel, but I don't want to have to delete the entire stream, right? Right now, the option is if it's there, you have to just delete the whole stream. And so the question that we've gotten is Twitch working on a way to cut out specific parts of a VOD so that we don't have to sacrifice the entire stream when we need to remove it from our channel?
Yeah, so this is one area we actually use Audible Magic to help. Audible Magic proactively scans VODs for copyrighted music, and if copyrighted music is detected, it mutes that portion of the VODs, which is obviously less disruptive than removing that section entirely. But you can also use the highlighter tool in the creator dashboard to select and remove segments of your VOD that you want to get rid of.
Yeah, Audible Magic, again, isn't perfect. So if you know that the content is there and you want to highlight the stream and do like a part 1 before the content and a part 2 after, you can definitely cut it up and keep it on your channel. So if you haven't done that, there is a help article to creating highlights and stream markers on help.twitch.tv you can check out if you're interested in learning more. But let's say that I do want to go ahead and just delete the entire stream or a series of VODs and clips from my dashboard. One question that we've heard multiple times across social media, feedback, email, customer support, everywhere is I deleted content from my dashboard. I went in and I tried to delete it, but it's still showing up on Twitch. Does that put my content and my channel at risk?
Yeah, I'm glad someone asked this question because it gives us a chance to address this misinformation we've been hearing. So if you've deleted the content,
they were just talking about this in my chat.
If you've used
weren't
Twitch
people
tools
hit
to delete
for
your
those
content
clips?
and it's still
I don't know if they were ever
viewable,
hit
receive
for
a
that.
strike against
I don't know
it.
if that was
For
ever
example, that it's
verified.
a
If it
large
was, I
job
missed it.
and it needs additional time, or there
I
are
mean,
other
you could
deletion
say
jobs in
anything.
progress,
I
you will
never
not
saw like
receive
verifiable,
those cases.
like truth to it.
It's important to
what they
note
say.
that this does not apply to content deleted by third-party tools that may exist on Twitch's systems. That's because we don't manage those tools and we cannot verify the accuracy of them.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to clarify and touch on that point. You
Fuck.
mentioned Audible Magic just a few minutes ago. Do you have any updates for us in terms of Audible Magic or what might be coming?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we use Audible Magic right now to scan new clips.
Yeah, he started with the response. Feel free to tell me what they said, chat. We were definitely talking over it.
Music is detected. We started using Audible Magic to go back and scan all historical clips that have been made, as well as all VODs that were created before it was introduced in 2014. So this scanning is ongoing, but it will take time for Audible Magic to scan years and years of VODs and clips. We'll keep making progress, but we expect the scanning to be completely done in about 6 months.
We did get a question about muted audio on the topic of Audible Magic, and they wanted to know if a section of their VOD was muted for sound on stream. Is that the same as a DMCA notification? I know some people get the two confused, that if it's muted, does that mean that a takedown
I'll read the
notice
answer
was
after they
filed?
finish
Can you
up here.
clear that up?
Yeah, so there's a difference between seeing a muted audio warning in your video producer dashboard and receiving a DMCA takedown notice. A muted VOD does not mean you've received a DMCA strike. It means our vendor, Audible Magic, detected copyrighted music and muted that segment of the VOD. This is actually, aimed to help prevent DMCA strikes, and it's not an indication that you've received one or even going to receive one. That said, as you mentioned, Aaron, no technology is perfect, and it's possible that Audible Magic doesn't pick up all copyrighted audio.
Yeah, we've said it a few times. It's a safety net, but it's definitely not perfect. So you can't rely on that solely. You can't put the content and assume that it's just going to catch 100% of it. So these tools are there to try to help you in case something slips through, not to allow you to put content on your stream that you don't have the rights to and then remove it later. But you mentioned, we talked about the confusion of knowing when you got a strike or knowing when you've just had a VOD that's muted. And I think the last thing that we should talk about with you here today is something that definitely needs some attention and we should do a better job at. And that's our system for managing DMCA notifications and appeals and notifying streamers when they do receive those notifications. So if you aren't familiar right now, Twitch sends DMCA notifications to creators in an email that contains the information like what content was removed, the content that was in violation, and information about who filed the notification. But honestly, email is not a reliable system and it's not creator friendly at all. So can you share with the community today what we're doing to make it more clear for streamers when they receive a DMCA notification and what their options are after it happens?
Yeah, you're right. Email should not be the only channel we use for important notifications like this, because as you mentioned, it's easy to miss an email or it's easy for it to be sent to the spam folder. To fix this, we're going to build functionality that when you receive the takedown notification, you receive the notification on Twitch as well as in an email. We expect to release this in the first half of 2021. But we also want to make it easier to navigate the entire DMCA process. In 2021, we're going to release a series of updates to enable creators to learn when they've received a DMCA notification, review the content that was subject to that notification, monitor the number of strikes they have on their channel, and even file counter notifications if they believe they wrongly received the DMCA notification. And that'll all be done directly from the creator dashboard.
So essentially YouTube.
I think that's going to be a pretty huge step, not just for understanding the content, but also making it easier to navigate. I know that there's comfort in just being able to feel informed about the current state of your channel, understanding how many strikes that you have, being able to navigate those notifications and understand the content that received it. So one of the questions we also get specifically about DMCA strikes are strikes for DMCA violations the same as strikes for violating Twitch's terms of service? We haven't really been clear about the difference between the two, and so I was hoping that you could clear that up.
Yeah, great question. So strikes that are received for DMCA violations are different than those received for terms of service violations, including community guidelines violations, and then they're not added together in any way. So, for example,
I think that's the first time they've ever
received
said
an
that.
enforcement on your channel for a community guidelines or terms of service violation. This is separate from and not counted against our DMCA repeat infringer policy, which is purely concerned with the number of DMCA notifications you've received. Likewise, if you've run afoul of Twitch's repeat infringer policy, DMCA strikes do not impact your ability to use Twitch products that require your account to be in good standing, like Bounty Board.
Yeah, I know that there were some streamers that weren't aware of those nuances, so I'm glad that we were able to clear that up. We just covered a lot. There were a lot of slides that you went through with like coming soon today. We covered a lot of ground. So I was hoping that you could also do a quick recap of the product roadmap so we can see in one place everything that's happening now and what's going to be coming up in the future.
Yeah, so quick recap. So we released 3 updates this week. We integrated soundtrack from Audible audio technology into OBS 26.1. We gave editors access to manage clips, and we added the functionality to let you unpublish individual VODs. Next quarter, we're going to continue to expand our VOD management functionality that lets you select a batch of VODs to unpublish and delete. And then in Q2, we're going to give users access to Soundtrack's multi-track audio technology in Twitch Studio. And we'll be adding DMCA tooling to the creator dashboard so you can receive notifications, review the content targeted in those notifications, and track strikes without having to leave Twitch. In the second half of the year, we'll enable sorting and deleting clips by date, game, or view count.
This goes all the way to the end of next year.
Yeah, I've never seen Twitch do a roadmap like this before. Also, some of this...
And while all this is going on, Audible Magic is going to continue to be scanning historical content and deleting.
I was hoping like everything they were talking about was like one
database.
Yeah.
And then finally, I want to remind everyone that we have a creator camp session that Aaron mentioned earlier on.
I mean, the gears of fucking corporate America move slow. Like, remember when Amazon bought Twitch and we were like, hey, they haven't done anything. It's been like a year and a half.
So much, chat. Again, if you have questions about anything that we just covered or as it relates to DMCA that we might not have covered, make sure that you type them in chat and use !ask so that we can log them, catalog them, and get you all the answers so that we can cover them in our Q&A section at the end. Jeremy, thank you so much. We will see you in that Q&A. So we'll see you here again in a little bit.
Thanks for having me, everyone.
So switching gears, we covered DMCA. Now we're going to get to our second topic for today, trust and safety. So joining us now is our Chief Operating Officer, Sarah Clemens. Sarah, welcome.
Hey, Erin, how's it going?
Hi. Good. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to chat?
Absolutely. So Sarah Clemens, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Twitch. And I run everything that focuses on taking the product.
It's a really good move for Twitch to have someone with an English accent and an Australian accent. It's so easy, so much easier to take.
The partnerships team,
so much more trustworthy, in my opinion.
Functions, including trust and safety, in my area.
We're going to spend the bulk of our time today in this segment talking specifically about the hateful conduct and harassment policy. But before we jump into that, I wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the other improvements and the progress that we've made this year to help keep our community safe. So I want to give you a second to talk about what stands out to you and what we've done this year.
Yeah, and firstly, I'd just like to say to everybody, thanks so much for showing up. Like, it's just amazing to see people who have dropped into the town hall. I know a lot of our creators are streaming it, so it's great to be able to have a conversation with you about these topics. So in terms of trust and safety, yeah, we've had a really big investment area in 2020 on trust and safety. It's a priority for us. It will absolutely continue to be. This is a perpetual area of investment for us.
Yeah, they made a pretty big hire as well in this department like a month ago.
And just this has been a big focus. We've heard from the community that they wanted us to make the community guidelines clearer and to improve enforcement consistency. So there's been a really strong focus around those two objectives. We've issued several policy clarifications this year that have been specifically about addressing community feedback about issues such as drops farming, and then also
no, this isn't more council stuff. This is the council I was a part of.
Quickly because the issues had cropped up in real time, and we wanted to address any areas of confusion and
wait, what did you?
Much clarity as
you just said no. This isn't about this. It is about this. What did you just say?
Somebody
said, "Is this more council?"
This had been a real.
And I said, "No, this is the council that I was a part of." Like, I was basically screaming at the top of my lungs, more transparency, better understandable rules, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
More clarity around what
I think I missed the important word there.
Of nudity and attire, so that you could feel more confident and understood exactly what was covered under the policy.
Did you say was?
And then just to clarify, new policies are only effective if we can.
Well, I don't know how much I can say about it. But yeah, it's not
one
over.
Of the big investments we made in this doubled our safety operations team in 2020.
It is not
and it's
over.
helped reduce the median response time by 96%, which this again is an area we'll keep focusing on. Having really expeditious responses to reports is critical to creating a really robust trust and safety system. And we've not only been adding more people to our trust and safety team, but we've also been adding some new expertise. So in particularly, we've focused on deepening our language cover globally so that we can get quick responses in all the different languages around the globe. And then we've also broken out a dedicated appeals team and a dedicated law enforcement team. And so that helps us, again, just have specialty around those particular areas. As I said, this is a perpetual area of investment for us. There's no end state when it comes to safety, and we're really committed to our efforts to protect and help the community, and we'll continue to invest heavily here.
So definitely making progress in enforcement and consistency, response time, all of those things are things that we hear from the community are a huge part in ensuring Twitch is a safer place to be and a big step for just safety in general, but it's definitely only part of it. So can you give us a rundown of the tools specifically that we've launched this year to help with moderation on Twitch?
Absolutely. Moderation is just critical. Shout out to the mods. We launched ModView to Help in March, it's a one-stop shop that we've created for mods on Twitch. And since we've launched that, over 40% of all moderations have gone through ModView. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and while we're on the topic, you said thanks to the mods, but I just want to reiterate, mods, thank you so much. You are absolutely amazing and a core part of why Twitch is what it is and ensuring that Twitch remains a safe place to be. So thank you all for your consistent and always on work.
Yeah, the mod teams are just incredible. They are truly one of the most important aspects of Twitch. And so this is an area where we continue to invest to try and make your lives easier. And, thank you for everything that you do to help create a safe place in Twitch. So I'm going to jump into some more of the products beyond ModView. So the first improvement is we added notifications for reporters. So historically, the reporter experience was a little bit of a black box. You would sort of submit a report, and then the only way you could tell something had happened is if you sort of saw, news on it on Twitter or people chatting about it. And so what we wanted to do was ensure that when people were reporting, they had real clarity around what happened. The safety of Twitch relies enormously on community reports. So, for us, making sure that you have clarity really is part of just maintaining the robustness of this reporting system. So earlier in 2020, we launched a confirmation email. So when you send a report in now, you will get a confirmation email saying that we've received it. We'd heard that it was a bit frustrating. It felt like it was sort of disappearing into a black hole. So that was the first thing. And then just a couple of weeks ago, we started sending a notification if action was taken for the reason you did in the report in order to close that loop. And so you actually know now if the thing that you reported was upheld, we will give you a response to that confirming that. It's really important that the community feels confident that the reports you make are impactful. And I just want to take a moment and just speak to this issue in particular. Every report that's submitted is reviewed by a member of our team. So back to the conversation Emma was having earlier about, Twitch is a human company. This is a really important part of our trust and safety approach, is that we want people to actually review these reports. And so, we're continuing to invest in our team. And in the first half of next year, we're actually going to be undertaking some user research to understand how we can further improve the reporter experience.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to understand the outcome of a report. They want to feel heard, to your point. They don't want to just know that their report went into the void and had no impact, that if something happened, that Twitch took action on it. It's super important. So I'm really glad to hear that we're making good on the commitment. We had mentioned it in the past that we were working on it. So it's nice to see those things rolling out and going out to the community.
Yeah, it's great. And on the topic of notifications, it's worthwhile mentioning our team is also working on providing more detail if you receive an enforcement against your account. So if you are someone who is on the receiving end of an enforcement, we will actually be providing a notification so that we include the content title, the creation date, and the type of content that's being actioned upon.
Yeah, I know that not being able to understand what was actioned, it's just saying you violated our guidelines and not knowing what you did or what the content specifically was can be an incredibly frustrating situation, especially if you're trying to appeal it. There's not much information to go on. So I'm sure people will be really happy on both sides. If you're making a report or if you're on the other side of the report, we are working on building out better communications and more transparency about what's happening in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last thing I want to touch on before we get to the Q&A is we are involving the community in order to improve our approach to trust and safety. So this has been a big area of investment for us, is really how do we bring the community voice into the conversations that we have about trust and safety, what we can do better, the approach that we're taking, and then what the sort of standards in the community are. And so we've invested in user research, and that includes things like interviews. We do focus groups of community members, and we do those around the globe and across different kinds of content types. And then we're also regularly tracking community sentiment through tools such as surveys. We use what we see on social media, and then also the user voice channel that Erin's mentioned a couple of times is another really good source for us in terms of understanding what the community's perspective is. In addition to talking to the community, we also consult with subject matter experts. So academics and the topics that we're considering, NGOs around the globe on specific topics like the hateful conduct policy we're going to talk about. And then finally, our Safety Advisory Council, which we created this year. And they are great at just providing us advice and feedback. It's been really valuable because they can give their unvarnished opinions on everything we put in front of them. And it's really helped us identify areas we can improve.
And we're going to talk about all of those things specifically as they relate to the updates to the hateful conduct and harassment policy. So we'll touch on the specifics of those in this next section. But before we get into that, I wanted to remind everyone that the new policy for hateful conduct and harassment doesn't go into effect until January 22nd
Did you guys
of
read over that?
2021. So we've specifically set aside the next few weeks to give the community time to read the policy, understand what's changing. And in the meantime, our safety team will continue to moderate under the existing guidelines until that January 22nd date. So Sarah, before we dive into the policy itself, we've gotten some questions from the community, both on Twitter, I'm sure in chat, and just across various areas. And they wanted to know that if we understand that we have a policy and we have a problem with harassment, why are we waiting, over a month to release the new updates to the policy?
Yeah, I'm really glad that this was asked. So first off, it's important to remember we have an existing policy in place, and that policy prohibits the kind of behavior that you under the hateful conduct and harassment policy, and we will continue to enforce that during the education period. And so it's not that there's no policy in place today. We do have the existing one. This one was about clarifying and adding some expansion. We weighed up the education period really carefully. We were considering, do we implement it immediately, or do we provide a buffer for the community? And we made a really deliberate choice to give everyone an opportunity to fully understand and digest the policy before we started enforcing it. We're super conscious that for many of our creators, Twitch is your livelihood. And so we didn't want to catch people off guard with a new policy, particularly over the holiday period. But I do want to reinforce, we take our community's safety incredibly seriously. If we thought that this education period would result in any level of abuse that we could have restrained, we absolutely would not have provided it. We will still be monitoring all content under the existing policy.
Yeah, and there is so much, in addition to the time period of educating the community about the policy, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes when we're trying to make these decisions. Again, we'll talk about that, but I think we should back up even one step further and talk about why we even decide to make these updates. What happens that we're like, we should revise and make new guidelines or amend or update the existing ones? So can you talk a little bit about what happened and why Twitch decided to make these updates?
Absolutely. So we're always looking for ways to help our creators and our communities to be safer on Twitch and do that in a way that's meeting the community's needs. And so we had heard from the community that there were some frustrations with the hateful conduct and harassment policy, specifically that the existing language was too broad. It didn't provide enough clarification on how we actually enforce the policy. And that lack of clarification was distressing for people. And so we were like, okay, this is something we want to make sure that people have a really high degree of understanding around. And then we'd also heard from communities that it didn't provide an adequate level of protection for some parts of our community, particularly those who are women, Black, LGBTQIA, disabled, and where their identities alone specifically and really unfortunately make them targets. And, our mission at Twitch is about building a global economy of diverse multiplayer creators. That's literally our mission statement. And so for us, we really want to ensure that, gaming and Twitch is for everybody. And we know that being exposed to pervasive harassment or hateful conduct really inhibits the growth of the community and the well-being of our streamers. And so with this update, we really wanted to provide clarity on our expectations by being very explicit about what was allowed and what isn't allowed. And so if you've read through the policy, one of the most notable changes is that we have added a really long list of examples in every section. And so if you go onto the Twitch site where the policy is, you can actually hover over the parts of the policy and you can see examples that will pop up, and they will give you tangible and concrete examples that demonstrate how the policy might actually translate into your everyday experience on Twitch.
This sounds like when Eric Cartman went through like the Hall of
our external guidelines, but also
tolerance or whatever, and it just like went through that thing, and it was saying all the slurs at him, and he was like, "Oh, good, I have more things to say."
They did put examples of everything in there, though.
Making sure that we are.
It's good that they did that,
and everyone
rather
is
than just kind of like leave it up to be nebulous
is super
in a lot of ways.
And I think
it's much better to do that than have someone get banned and be like, why did I get banned?
To the policy, we're just being incredibly clear about how this may
a lot of streamers make it their job to walk that line. So if you don't even know what the line is, like,
very specific to your point. And before we move on,
standard across a lot of other industries, so I'm glad that it's here as well.
Will content created before the announcement be held to the new policy?
What I'm trying to say is everyone in chat, you're all banned.
Everyone's banned. We're banning everyone. We're starting over.
Moderating against content that may have existed.
We're ushering in a new year and new people.
Yeah, that's a great question. Good clarification. So no.
New beginnings. New beginnings, JP.
Indeed. We're also going to reset all of our follower accounts because it doesn't matter anymore.
So we do not intend for this to be applied to
historical.
Wait, no, I thought you agreed to this.
Along the theme of what Emma was saying, that sometimes mistakes can occur. The reality of using humans to do things is occasionally there can be errors. If you do receive a strike for what you believe is content that was created prior to the 22nd of January, that was acceptable under our existing policy, then please file an appeal so that we can look into it. We do not intend for people to be penalised for something that is new in the policy that gets applied after January 22nd for content that was created prior.
Yeah, in general, shifting just a little bit, we've not really consistently disclosed to the community how we make these decisions. I said we've
this is the exodus right here.
But I would really love for us to talk about how we make these decisions when we decide specifically what to update and specifically what is and isn't allowed. The community wants to know that they're represented, especially if you're somebody that's impacted by new and updating policies, that somebody is bringing your point of view or your experience into the room to ensure that this doesn't have a negative impact on you, that these policy updates are actually beneficial. So can you talk about the process for this specific round of policy updates and who was involved in helping making those decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned this earlier, this is a big area of investment for us, is that we want to ensure that the community voice is part of our ongoing policy development process. And so the internal team that drives this process actually worked with our internal research group, and we conducted a range of interviews. They were both one-to-one interviews and then also focus groups with groups of creators and moderators around the globe. And we talked to them about the kinds of harassment that people experience on Twitch and how that affects them. And so we really intentionally ensured that there was a diverse sampling of creators. So we include, a range of genders, people from different regions, different content focuses, what time they spend on Twitch. So we could get a really broad and representative view of the community. And this was just so helpful in us being able to understand what are the key pain points that the community feels and what do we need to address to ensure that the change we would make to the policy would actually provide protections for everybody. And then in addition to that, we have built a sort of arm of effort across the business, which is how do we tap into experts around the industry? So in addition to talking to our community and having people internal, what are the external experts that we can talk to? And so these are academics around the globe, We've talked to civil society groups, safety groups, and specifically in fields who consider things like cyberbullying or diversity and inclusion, and ensuring how the best practices for helping build healthy communities can actually enhance what we do on Twitch.
Yeah, one of the points that you talked there was about historical context and current cases and review lending into how we decide to make these updates. And one of the questions that we saw across Twitter specifically when we announced the updates to the policies were coming was that the community wanted to know if this was Twitch's response to the sexual misconduct allegations that we saw over the summer.
So we had actually started working on this policy change well prior to that. This has been almost a year in the making, but the information that we gathered as part of the investigation that Twitter undertook into those allegations over the summer gave us visibility into the ways in which sexual harassment can actually differ from other forms of abuse. And it influenced our decision to distinguish sexual harassment as its own category and break it out, and then also to adopt the lower tolerance threshold you see in the policy for objectifying or harassing behavior that's sexual in nature.
So now that we have the context into why we make policy updates, how we make policy updates, and we're very clear about where we are from those aspects, let's really get into the details of what each one of those sections includes. So the current policy is broken out into the 3 areas, hateful conduct, harassment, and sexual harassment. Why specifically those 3 areas?
So as we completed the research that we were undertaking, one of the things that became crystal clear was that there was absolutely no one-size-fits-all solution here. And so we decided to break the categories out into distinct sections. So harassment, hateful conduct, and then as I mentioned, following the events of the summer, we broke sexual harassment out as a 3rd category. And we did that to reflect and to ensure that we could consider the different situations with a lot more specificity than we're able to if they're all combined together. And we thought it was really important, in particular with that sexual harassment category, to allow our teams to take decisive action around those behaviours. This also allowed us to add specific examples, which was much harder when they were all combined together. And so again, when you look at the policy, you can see those breakouts where we've added very specific examples to each of the types of behaviour. And we are hopeful that that will help achieve greater clarity across the policy.
Yeah, the older policy in the current language was super generic and pretty broad, and it was kind of encapsulated in one area that was incredibly dense. So I think it makes sense to break them out. So I think we should go through one by one each one of those sections today and kind of overview what's updated and what's been clarified in each section. So let's
I'm going to
start
say something
with the harassment section.
Saito in my channel said, and you will never be able to unsee it now because I want you to feel my pain.
When it comes
to that circle ring fan behind her, it looks like she's behind the window at a bank.
Things. The first is we learned from our creative research and the feedback that we gathered from all of those conversations.
See, someone in my chat said that if you look at her books,
had a really stable and consistent definition.
If you look at her books, they're organized from biggest to smallest on the shelf.
Guidance. And so
that's what I've been lost in.
It's
trying to see if they are organized exactly.
Yeah. From where we are today.
Wait till she goes big screen, you'll notice
as I said, we've added a lot of detail. So there's a lot of examples, and we've done that to really make it clear what is it that we consider harassment, and providing those examples to bring that to life for you as you review the policy.
Yeah, the very top bullet of
Guys,
slide is something that
we're not bored.
All the
we're
time,
perceptive.
Which is that there is a nuanced and kind of
that was also
really,
a chat comment. We didn't recognize that
important
stuff.
part of conversation that relies on context, which is that there is differences between banter and trash talk and harassment, right? Those are all different things. And that concern is largely based around the idea or the potential for streamers receiving a suspension for something that was good-natured but was reported for harassment. I know that that's a concern for people out there. So can you clarify for us what that looks like in terms of our internal policy?
Yeah, this was probably the biggest issue that we grappled with as we looked at amending the harassment policy. We got a lot of feedback from the community that they wanted to be able to, have their own jokes and talk to each other, and there'd be sort of banter and memes and inside jokes. And we wanted to ensure that we didn't stop people being able to do that. And what we were focused on is sometimes those behaviors can cross a line and then they rise to the level of harassment. And so what we have decided is that in order to evaluate that, we'll actually consider a number of different factors. And specifically, is there an indication that the behavior is unwanted or makes someone uncomfortable? And so those indications may be things like timeouts, reports, a chat ban from the target or one of their moderators. And those indications give us the necessary context to ensure we're not punishing people for, banter or teasing or competitive trash talk that's actually comfortable for people who are participating in that particular discussion. And so that sort of gives you some sense of, how do we think about that line? I do want to emphasize there are bounds across Twitch about what is or is not acceptable. And so as creators, as community members, it's important to remember that there may be behaviors that you're comfortable to, but they're not acceptable to the broader Twitch community. And so we do have what we think of as kind of thresholds in terms of the behaviors, and there are limits to that exception of allowing indications of comfort around the particular conversation. And so we're constantly weighing the perspective of the reporter and the content under review for each determination. And the thing that we are hopeful for is we anticipate these changes will actually improve that enforcement consistency as they reduce subjectivity in the review process.
We have said this for a while, and I know that I personally say it all the time, but if somebody does something in your channel that makes you uncomfortable or you witness something, you should absolutely feel empowered to take action. So if somebody does something, definitely time them out or ban them, and especially report it, right? A lot of times somebody will come into chat, say something, and someone says, oh man, that feels like harassment to me, and they ban, and that's where it stops. But we rely on the community to report those actions for us so that we can take those actions. And so I'm glad that that context is now related. When you come in and you're timed out, you do it again, you're banned, and then a report's issued, there's very clear indication that the behavior was definitely unwanted and you persisted in trying to have that conversation or make that commentary. So on the opposite side of the issue, though, we have another question from the community that I know came across social for sure, which is that what happens if somebody falsely claims to be offended, that they didn't actually take offense, but they were reporting in bad faith or they wanted somebody just to get in trouble? How do we determine that, and what do we do about it?
Yeah, so that is a great clarification. So absolutely, even if we're given an indication from a targeted user, we do not suspend for behaviors that don't violate the harassment policy or general community guidelines. So for example, if someone's egging you on and then reports you, and a review of the content would demonstrate that that was in bad faith. And so we don't want to penalize people who are, someone's trying to game the system to attempt to get someone else in trouble. We do always take that into account. But I will just reiterate, if you did make a comment and you were asked to stop and it was in violation of the harassment guidelines, then there could be grounds for enforcement. And so I just encourage people, like, if you don't have a relationship with the other person and you're unsure, what their sort of tolerance for particular kinds of behaviors are, it's probably best to avoid them.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Read the chat rules, know what you're getting into, have that level of confidence before you do something that could potentially put your account at risk. So I think we've covered broadly what the harassment policy updates look like. So let's move into hateful conduct. Can you cover what's changing or what's been clarified there?
Yeah, so let me just kick off with clarifying the difference between harassment and hateful conduct. So harassment becomes hateful conduct when you target someone on the basis of a protected, usually identity-based characteristic. And so in this policy change, we've expanded our list of protected characteristics and have included caste, color, and immigration status. And the reasoning for that is we want to evolve with the community. And so we heard from our community that they felt these were protected characteristics that were not included in our previous policy, and we really needed to step up and include. So we've done that. And then similarly to the harassment section, it's a very similar approach in that we've added a lot of illustrative examples. So all of these behaviors were implied in the policy we have in place now, but they weren't explicitly called out. And so we've made an effort to actually break those out for you, so it gives you a more tangible sense of how these policies are actually interpreted.
I feel like that section was incredibly brief and didn't accurately portray the amount of severity and importance that we put on making sure that there is not hateful conduct on Twitch and that nobody experiences that behavior. So if you are new, you've never heard about what these policies look like, or you're not familiar with what the new updates will look like, I would definitely encourage you to go look at the blog, go look at the information that we put out there. We did an entire section on Creator Camp talking specifically about what these policies would look like. There is a lot of information, even specifically as it comes to the hateful conduct policy. So review it, ensure that you understand what it means, both as a streamer and as a viewer, so that you know that Twitch is protecting you. And if you have questions about that, please let us know. Again, Q&A at the end. Sarah will be joining us there. So ! Ask in the chat. Finally, we've covered those two. Let's move on to the sexual harassment section. What are the call outs that the community should note there?
Absolutely. So first off, the big one is obviously that we're breaking sexual harassment out from harassment and hateful conduct, and we've called it out separately. And so this new policy really talks about behaviors that could be objectifying or abusive, and makes it clear that these are never permitted on Twitch. Because of this, our trust and safety team will act without requiring any indication from the target that the behaviors are unwanted. This is a really notable and important change, but a critically important one, because what it does is take the onus off the victim of that behavior to report it. And so community reports around that and a review from our trust and safety team ascertaining that indeed it did breach the community guidelines around sexual harassment will be enough for us to act upon. So we've also prohibited things like repeatedly commenting on someone's appearance if they've asked you to stop, and also making explicit comments about someone's sexuality. And I honestly hope some of this just sounds like common sense, but we wanted to ensure that everybody was crystal clear about our expectations of the behaviors we expect when you are part of the Twitch community.
Yeah, I know that there are definitely several communities that will be glad to see that those changes are going into effect, but I think it's fair to say that there is absolutely skepticism about our ability to provide consistent enforcement. We've mentioned it multiple times, like we're trying to improve the consistency there. And so one of the questions that we've gotten from the community is asking you to speak to what we're doing specifically to improve the consistency across our enforcement so that it's more fair to users across the board.
Absolutely. And this is a great question. And we absolutely acknowledge the fact that our policies are only as good as their enforcement. And enforcement consistency is a priority for us. I know this has been a real pain point for the community historically. And Emmett actually talked at TwitchCon last year in North America and explained part of the reason we'd historically had issues with consistency was we actually had different teams managing trust and safety across the business, and they just inevitably led to inconsistencies. There was different training on what the policies were and different interpretation of those. And so last year, 2019, we actually brought all of those teams together, and we've been putting in place these new policies. We've built out global training processes, and wherever possible, we're trying to remove subjectivity from the system, because subjectivity is the thing that creates inconsistency. And all of this consistency absolutely starts with having clear guidelines. Like, it's absolutely essential to us being able to run a trust and safety system which is consistent and fair for everybody. And so one of the reasons we actually updated this policy is that the broad language we had in the previous policy had made enforcement decisions seem really confusing or inconsistent, because it wasn't clear to the community what specific behavior was prohibited. And so everybody was sort of second guessing, like, oh, I saw somebody was banned. Why do I think that was? What might have happened? And, was this interpreted against the existing policy? And so the effort we've made to clarify and provide all of these examples means that both internally and externally, we're able to help remove some of that subjectivity in the review process. And then the second thing from a consistency perspective is we've been scaling up our safety operations team, and the team has had an enormous amount of training over the course of the last year. And that's a really important aspect in terms of ensuring that they understand how the new policy should be applied to content, what the nuances are of it, the types of examples that we provide here, we provide to the safety operations team when they're looking at content. And our safety operations team we'll be placing more emphasis under this new policy on the content of the words and actions rather than the intent. So you may recall that our historical approach was we would look at the intent behind the content that had occurred and that had been reported. And that actually makes it more subjective because everybody thinks about intent differently. So what we've done instead is move to, consider the context, but look at the content on the face of it and review it against the community guidelines. And that means that it makes it much simpler for our safety team to review this content. And I just want to emphasize, we said this earlier, but every report that you send to Twitch is reviewed by a member of our safety team. And we are really committed to that human review. We believe that humans are best placed to assess the context and the meaning of content, and that can really vary enormously country to country. And so some of those investments I talked about having people with local language and teams around the globe, that really helps here as well in terms of helping with consistency. It means that our teams are in tune with world events and they can understand and identify nuances that can have a really significant impact on meaning in a particular language. So you'll see us continuing to improve on this front. And I just want to say again, we recognize that we've not always been great historically on this, and it absolutely is an area of focus for us. Finally, I just want to say, this is a human process. I've said 5 or 6 times now, these are human beings that
in a lot of ways, isn't all of this, everything they just went over,
so
dependent on the streamer themselves to enact this on their own chat, so it's lost on
we also have
90% of streams,
to ensure
right?
that if they do happen, that they are fixed.
Yeah,
and again,
I would say
we've broken a separate appeals team out.
The key. Someone said that in chat. The key word here is, or one of the keywords is unwanted. Like in my chat, it's totally fine, so it's not unwanted for you to talk shit to me, say raunchy things towards me, and that kind of stuff. Because it's fine with me. I don't mind. I've been a comedian for a long time, so I like it. But
there's more information that you should know about that.
So I think it's just more defining what is enactable and reportable.
The intent of what was done behind that. Before we move on, there is a trust and safety related topic that we haven't covered here. It's not necessarily covered in the policy, but it is something that we commonly get. And I think it's really important for us to cover. And that's that the community wants to know what Twitch is doing to help curb the creation of usernames that are made purely for the purpose of harassing others or streamers or other viewers on Twitch.
Yeah, this is a great question. And thank you for people who submitted it. This is an absolute priority for us. So our efforts here fall into 2 categories. One is what can we do with technology, and the other is what can we do with humans. So I'll start with the tech. From that perspective, we have an offensive username machine learning model that runs on all of our newly proposed usernames. So if you create a new username, we will actually run that through a technology system that will review it and will block hateful or harassment names from being created. And we also maintain as part
of that just fine
slurs,
as long as they don't ban
phrases that would be
my chicken tendies
usernames as well. And machine learning is a great tool, but it doesn't necessarily understand the nuance of language. And so we did a specific piece of debiasing work earlier this year to train it to allow more positive expressions of LGBTQIA and Black identity. And so, again, we want to use technology wherever it can be effective, but it does require these kinds of training and investments. We do also act on reports of offensive usernames, and those that are found in violation of our community guidelines are indefinitely suspended. So on the proactive detection model, that's based on actions and reports. So I would say it gets smarter. We almost train it. That's what machine learning does when you report offensive usernames. So I really encourage you, when you see offensive usernames that may have gone through the system, if you can report those to us, because that report actually helps us improve our technology proactive detection. And so they're really essential to that. So please do keep doing that, as it helps eliminate those offensive usernames from Twitch. And then on the human side, we also have a team dedicated to preventing ban evasion on Twitch. We don't talk about what they do because the objective of this team is to stay ahead of bad actors. And so I appreciate this can be really frustrating. It's one of those areas where people ask us, like, what specifically are you doing? We don't speak about it because if we do, it actually helps bad actors create new vectors of abuse, because they just look at the playbook that we're creating to stop them from evading detection, and they use that to try and go around it. And so this is one of those areas where we're like, we absolutely are investing in solutions to prevent suspended users from returning to Twitch, and we will continue to make those investments. This is critical. We understand how harmful and distressing it can be if these come through.
Yeah, that team's definitely the unseen heroes behind the scenes. And I know that it can be frustrating for the community. We get a lot of questions specifically about, do you do this? Do you try to this technology? And we hear it. We know that you want to know, but there is a specific reason why sometimes we don't tell you that. And it's so that people can't figure out how to circumvent that. And this is one area where we would tell you publicly, we are committed to it. We are doing it. Please trust us that we hear it. But sometimes it's better that we don't share the information so that we can keep you, the community, safe. So I just want to reiterate too that if there's one thing to remember about the updated policy, it's that enforcement begins on January 22nd. You have from now until then to review the updated community guidelines. You can find that on twitch.tv/creatorcamp under the Learn the Basics section.
Did you guys have like your general community consensus on this? Mine seemed like they were
subsequent videos and live.
No one seemed up in arms in my chat. Not necessarily this moment, but I just mean the guidelines in general. Was that the same for you guys?
Sort of tracking your questions and
I mean,
ready to answer.
Generally, but
so
one of the problems is
this
particular segment was
last week.
About
there was a blog post
10% really important things that can move forward, and about 90% just like
I don't think it was for us. If that makes sense.
Yeah, if this segment kind of like the first, if this segment was like 5 minutes and just talking about the important stuff, I feel like it would have been significantly more impactful.
I don't think we didn't need to hear this, but certain people did. They won't watch it though. So I agree with
the problem is people that needed to hear it are fundamentally not interested in what it is.
Right.
So it's like,
I agree with that as well.
So Sarah, thank you so much for all of the wonderful insight as it relates to keeping the community safe, trust, and safety in the new policy updates. So we will see you also shortly for the Q&A.
Hey, thanks so much, Aaron. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, had there not been another segment,
we've been here
an
hour and a half.
We would have cut away from this already.
We jump into the Q&A. I hope you all are finding lots of helpful information here today. So the final topic of today's town hall is ads. Some of you may have attended the ads webinar that we hosted specifically for partners about a month ago. I'm specifically excited about this part because right now we are going to review all of the information that was included in that partner webinar.
I thought she was going to say right now we're going to run some ads.
In the know, including updates for the past few weeks, and show you things to come. I said it earlier. I'm still excited. There's new stuff here, you guys. It's very rare we're excited about ads, and today we're there. Mike Mitten is joining us now, who I'm sure is also very excited. Mike leads our monetization efforts at Twitch, including.
I'll be honest with you. I was excited for the ad shit that I got to talk with Emmett about that TwitchCon, 17 years ago. I was like, oh man, these are some great changes.
Data and some numbers and some learnings that we have about ad performances. And talk about the future.
It was more disappointing than I hoped.
Hey, Aaron. So happy to be here. So thankful to have
I've spoken with Mike here before. He seems
about the importance of advertising and
on top of his shit and the conversations I've had.
Before we even get started, I want to just take a second to talk about really what sparked the entire conversation around ads, which was the automated mid-roll experiment that we ran a few months ago. And I think the most common question we get is like, why did Twitch even decide to do that experiment? Like, what prompted us to roll that out?
Sure. Let's jump in with both feet. So anytime that we're making a change to the site or the ad experience, we're starting with some type of customer problem. And what we had heard consistently from streamers is even if ads seemed interesting and the revenue that could be earned, there's a perception there's a disadvantage. If I run ads and other streamers aren't running ads, I may lose my audience because nobody else is running ads. It also was grounded in an insight and understanding that for the streamers that were running ads, it started with, or many of them were using automated tools, running ads on a timer, basically. So the combination of those two things, informed our solution where we would automate the ad breaks to level out the ad load across Twitch, reduce the burden on streamers to have to remember to hit the ad button. That's why they're hitting and using the third-party tools. It's hard to remember to run an ad break in the midst of everything else that a streamer is doing to create amazing content and build a community. And so For us, it was bring the timer on the platform, put the burden on Twitch. Honestly, we expected that the community would be largely angry at Twitch versus the streamer. What we learned, and we always learn in anytime we make changes, and the feedback we got was the control in our mind was the streamer can choose to run an ad break. If the streamer runs an ad break, the automated mid-rolls won't run. That wasn't enough. It's quite clear and consistent feedback from the streamers to say we need even more controls than that. Even when they use timers, what we heard from them is they're still adjusting the ad running to avoid an ad running, say, in the middle of a boss fight. Nobody wants to get an ad when you're about to down the boss, as an example. So our goal was to get feedback. Our goal was to learn. We did that, and it was quite clear. We heard the feedback. Thank you. That's where we are.
We definitely heard them. There was lots of feedback, and we heard all of it. And even with all that feedback, I think it's still fair for us to answer this question because the community will continue asking, and we should make it clear.
What is that?
Is the automated mid-roll experiment
say comrade?
Combine resistance?
Is that a Half-Life poster?
We ran it is not coming back. The feedback's quite clear. It would not be certainly smart for us to put that back out there, given the feedback we received. But I do want to be clear, we're going to continue to experiment on ways to make the ad experience more consistent across Twitch. We must. We'll talk more about why coming up. But our North Star vision is most ads on Twitch are mid-roll ads run in a streamer-initiated ad break, period, full stop. We have more things coming. We'll be more transparent. We'll make sure streamers have more control and obviously think a lot more about the viewer experience to make sure that they're not missing out on those important moments.
Yeah, I think it's really good for the community to know as they think about the future of ads that we are dedicated to making sure that they're less intrusive. We'll talk about kind of what some of those core tenets are here in a little bit. But at the end of the day, ads are incredibly important to the ecosystem of Twitch. So I'd love for the community to hear directly from you why that is and provide some additional insight.
Yep. It starts with everybody, typically brings up subscriptions and sharing bits. We love those products. The community loves those products, but not everybody can afford to pay. Not everybody wants to pay on Twitch. So the other thing to keep in mind as well is the viewer journey, right? It often takes a long time for a viewer to discover a community that works for them, that aligns with their interests, and they're ready to support by taking out their wallet. The other thing, for those of you I'm sure all watch Twitch and observe, is subs and bits work great for communities where chat is readable, where there's a lot of engagement between the community and the streamer, and less well as you get into very large communities. Chat's moving faster, a cheer may not even get noticed oftentimes. So as the channel grows, ads become a much bigger part of how the community is supported. So if you think about it from a streamer perspective, ads generate revenue, can be quite good revenue, paid for by brands versus viewers, or brands are paying for the opportunity to reach this awesome audience and community. Ads grow with the channel, grows with Twitch, right? And then, frankly, it allows us to provide the infrastructure, the bandwidth, and services to support the Twitch experience. Like simply said, they pay our bills and keep Twitch free.
Could you imagine if they started the entire ad process with what he just said and how much better it would have been?
And we do hear this quite often, that Twitch doesn't need ad revenue because we make enough money from
instead of running an experiment.
So can you give us more insight to there and tell us what the truth is when it comes to that?
Sure. The data and the truth is that ads scale. Bits and subs in paid products do not scale the same way ads do in terms of scaling. When I say scale, I'm talking about all kinds of content across different types, from esports to community created content in different countries around the world and different community sizes. So ads scale. And as Twitch grows, ads become more important in terms of the value they provide. As streamers grow, it becomes more important to them and their earnings and their ability to make a living doing what they love. So we have to have both, and we're balancing both. So it allows Twitch to be the place where streamers can get paid creating and building a community around things that they love, whether they're a day two streamer with one concurrent viewer that might be their friend trying to grind their way to affiliate, or whether they're a partner that's been on the platform or on the service for 7 years and has thousands of viewers every time they stream. So we're here to support all streamers. We have the products and resources to do that. And that's why we need to have both forms of monetization in terms of direct paid as well as the advertising. And then other thing, sorry, there's another point I wanted to make up because I often see this on social media, which is, we are an independently operated business. We built a high definition, low latency, globally available streaming experience, right? It's amazing. There's nothing else like it in the world as far as I can tell. So operating that, maintaining it, growing it as the community grows has significant operating costs. So ads are really
what's the latency on YouTube?
That we were able
I think the keyword there was low latency, so I'm trying to see if there is.
That we can keep building that service, growing it, and rolling out new tools for streamers.
Cries in mixer.
The high latency, high definition, low latency, and global availability, especially when it comes to large channels, can be quite costly. And then you add in all of the channels who are just starting out on Twitch who don't have those monetization products enabled. There's a lot of costs that's associated.
That's going to require a lot of research.
And ads are really an important part of keeping
I might
that
have to
technology going.
Get out of here for the rest of the day. I got
getting that content
so much research
all around the globe.
Before
we get into the details and talk about data and what's next, I want to make sure too that everybody here understands actually what the current ad experience should be as a viewer. There's a lot of people who don't quite understand how and when ads run on Twitch. And so I think it's important that we cover that now. So if I'm a viewer and I'm coming to Twitch, what should my expectation be as it relates to seeing advertisements on streams that I'm watching?
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely a lot of confusion about what to expect and what ads are run by Twitch versus streamers. So today, pre-rolls are Twitch initiated. So as you're discovering new channels and you happen to find a new stream, you will often be experienced with a pre-roll before that stream starts. And then you will also see beyond that pre-roll in some channels, not all channels, where streamers initiated an ad break. And when streamers are running those ad breaks, really important to understand, if they consistently run mid-rolls, it removes the pre-roll from the experience. So if they run 90 seconds of ads every half hour, it will remove pre-rolls from that.
Yeah, I think that the pre-roll experience is understood. People know when they go into a channel for the first time that they're going to get a pre-roll, but mid-rolls and the way that mid-rolls work and when I should expect to see a mid-roll are confusing to the community and they're confusing to viewers. I think I have an indication of why that might be, but I would love to hear from you.
I thought that slide was pointless,
about why that is.
I guess not.
Yeah, it gets back to that.
I guess I live and breathe that. Chat seems
not
surprised
all streamers
that's
are running
the
ads.
ratio.
Many viewers watch same channels consistently. When they go experience a new channel and see an ad break, it'd be very confusing. And often one of the things I see on social media constantly is, why was there 7 pre-rolls? Well, there wasn't. What happened is you happened to enter a channel as a viewer when an ad break was being run, and it was surprising and unusual. But those ads, again, when you see the longer ad pods of more than one ad, it's a streamer-initiated ad break after a pre-roll.
Yeah, and some of those ad breaks as well aren't 7 30-second ads. Sometimes they're 7 shorter ads, but the length of time has been determined by the streamer who's running that mid-roll. And that length of time can be 90 seconds, it can be a minute, it can be a different varying amount of time. And so both the number of ads doesn't correlate necessarily to the time, and understanding when it happens can definitely be confusing. But because a lot of streamers aren't manually running their own ad breaks, mid-roll ads are somewhat of a new experience for the community, even though the number of ads total that you will experience on Twitch is still much less than other video-based services. So ads here are not as prevalent as they might be on other places where you consume video content. But since mid-rolls are controlled by the creator, we see concern from streamers all the time who aren't necessarily opposed to running ads. And obviously everybody wants to increase monetization and make more money, but there's an underlying fear that if I'm a streamer and I run ads, that I'm going to lose viewers. And I know that you've got some data and insights to talk about the numbers there. So can you share what that data is that we know impacts different kinds of viewer retention as it relates to running ads?
Yeah, for sure. It's something we've shared with streamers to help educate and make them aware. But the reality is, first of all, let's start with most viewers absolutely stay. They understand ad support the streamer and they don't leave or switch channels. But if you compare a mid-roll or a streamer-initiated ad break versus a pre-roll, the community is 5 times more likely to stay through a mid-roll. Now, the immediate question that typically follows that is, well, if I run
this is kind of weird because we don't have access to this information.
Does that mean that just adds
the only information we have access to is our viewer count after we run a block of ads, which goes down.
So it's like the first break or first ad. The increasing likelihood that they'll stay through the entire.
They wouldn't lie. I mean, they're not going to cyberpunk us.
And streamers are, educating the audience, letting them know.
I just wanted to see how you react to that, so I can set up for the next hour. That's all that was.
Actually gets out of
no. I mean,
and takes a break. They can see the impact.
Let's reel it back.
The joke was good. I just don't know if I agree with.
So
yeah, I know
that's why we created the pre-roll trade, so that new viewers can get into your channel more easily while still maintaining equal.
Hey, I wouldn't disagree with the cyberpunk stuff.
Okay,
all right.
And then the viewers
don't worry.
Can immediately see your content.
Yeah, I think for people that are coming into a stream for the first time, they want to stay and they want to experience the channel and see what you have to check out. And so if you are regularly running those breaks when it's convenient, right, being aware that it's happening, running those 90-second ads to disable those pre-rolls, that retention ends up being higher in the long run because they're able to get in. You're able to get them to type in chat, which we know somebody types in chat, they're more than twice as likely to come back. There's a lot of retention information, especially on Creator Camp.
They've said that in their Creator Camp stuff.
So I'm glad
that information is not privy to us, though.
About how viewers experience ads on their channel, and especially helping them retain those new viewers so that their communities can still grow while allowing for those different monetization options. Speaking of monetization options,
so their argument is that
memed for sure.
If
you
streamers
really
roll
know,
ads
can I
every
actually
40,
make real
30 minutes
money?
or 45 minutes or whatever,
money to be made
that you will keep more
Twitch,
viewers because there's no mid-roll?
Know about,
no, I think their argument is
mid-roll.
Yeah, they absolutely can.
Let's watch this, and then I think I understand their argument.
It's going to vary by the amount of ads and the community size, of course, and by country, honestly, as well. But the thing to take away from here, if you look at we'll start from the left and work our way right.
They're kind of going into it.
A smaller streamer in that 11 to 100, working your way to partner at this point, probably a consistently streaming affiliate, and you're running 3 minutes of ads an hour, which, as Aaron said earlier, is far less than any other ad-supported content
concurrent
site
viewers, I think, is CCV.
Compared to YouTube,
chat.
Hulu, etc. And if you, so again, starting there, 3 to 6% increase if you consistently run ads and you remove the pre-roll, right? So you get the benefit, a little more money, and the pre-roll's gone. But, and one way to think about that for these size of communities, it's another sub or two, which adds up, right? It's meaningful, helps get more equipment for the stream, helps you on your journey to become, a bigger, larger community. So then if we go into, what I'll call mid-sized, at this point, 101 to 4,000, I know it's a very large range. That's, our partners, they're growing partners, communities. And if they're running 3 minutes of ads, they can increase their take-home pay up to 28% by consistently running ads. And again, also with the removal of pre-roll benefit. And then finally, at our largest communities, and no secret, ads tend to work better at larger size communities, is up to a 63% increase in terms of the potential earning, or 48%, sorry, this slide says, there's some variance here based on, again, community size, where you're at, country. So up to 50% increase in revenue for our largest communities by just running 3 minutes of ads. And once your community is used to ads and you can incorporate those into your content and increasing that a little bit, then you start to see even larger in terms of the potential revenue in up to 120% by running 5 minutes of ads. Still less than YouTube, still far less than many other sites on the internet.
The whole topic
really
on conversation, or the whole conversation on ads on Twitch would have been.
Yeah. I think it's important that we say that we're not.
But they don't have a 5-minute ad
from
button.
0 to 5 minutes. That's not the case, right? Start with.
I have a 6-minute ad button.
Have the conversation with your community.
And they're saying 5 minutes per hour, so like a 3-minute block, and then 10 minutes later you run another block.
That the channel.
Yeah.
And those are very valid.
We run
things
6 minutes every 2.
You can have with your community.
Online.
So we're definitely not advocating just go out there and run all ads all the time. You should make sure that it works with your content.
Where do I get that button?
We're trying to give you more tools to be able to do
that.
But even with all the tools, even with all of the improvements that we're making to ads in the future, the ability for creators to earn money doing ads are still impacted by other things that viewers can be doing in a negative way. We have seen a lot of conversation, and it's something that I think we should address, which is how ad blockers are impacting the ad experience on Twitch. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I hope they just cut to somebody's like, people aren't seeing ads. Back to you, Aaron.
So first, it's important to understand that oftentimes ad blockers prevent the streamer from getting paid. So the impression's not tracked. The ad's more than likely, nearly always delivered, but because we can't track it, it unfortunately impacts the streamer and their ability to earn from that ad view. So the other thing we've seen recently, been a lot of this on social media, the way that ad blockers and third-party scripts are trying to modify the site, it results in things like come to watch on Twitch TV. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm already on Twitch TV. That's not the expected experience. And in those cases, we suggest you check things you may have installed. We have a published help page that you can learn more, and encourage you to go look there if the ad experience isn't what we've been talking about today.
Yeah, so I think we've covered our bases in terms of just background information and context that is helpful for the community to know. But I think ultimately what they're anxious to learn about is what we're actually doing and what the future of ads look like. Especially we see the questions of like, are you going to do that again? Because they want to know that the ad products that we're building are actually meeting the goals that they have and the goals that Twitch has. So can you talk a bit about how you and your teams are thinking about what ads and what ad products we build, what ad products we consider. And
I have the biggest urge to run just like a fat 6-minute block of ads right now. Just
guys,
certainly.
We've been live for
really
an hour and 57.
With, as I said earlier, we always start with
get ready because that timer's coming.
Talk about the future. It's what more controls can we give to streamers, and how can we make advertising?
Barry loves hitting that button.
Help that impact.
It doesn't even impact him. He just likes hitting the button.
Then when you think about the viewer side of it, it's live content. We don't have timeouts like the NFL does in live sports. We really need to have them not disrupt the content. And that starts with the streamer running ad breaks that works with the content. And then when, from the viewer side, we want the ads to be relevant, personalized, and, mesh with the content in a way that's good. And then finally, you can't forget the advertiser. They're the folks that are putting out, the money here to buy advertising on Twitch. And in that case, the ads must be attractive. It must represent their brand. It must be effective. They need to work, right? You want to see engagement. You want to see brand lift. That's the type of advertising that Twitch is often selling. So by balancing the needs of these three customers, streamer first, viewers, and advertisers, that will result in more advertisers spending on Twitch, spending and running more campaigns, which results in streamers earning more money. And I think that most streamers I've talked to, that's certainly always a positive. And then for the viewers that don't want to pay or
central
can't pay,
focus on, hey, streamers, listen to this.
It helps
viewers
them to support the community. And as I said
off
earlier,
for a little while.
Twitch
none of this is pertinent to viewers necessarily.
We're not always going to be right the first time we do something. But we'll keep working on it to make it an additive part, experience, and balance the needs of streamers, viewers, and advertisers. So to talk to that a little more,
remember this?
We have teams been working on this for a while. We're iterating with this.
Remember when this showed up in your dashboard randomly?
Which is really a much better on Twitch.
That's what this is.
Schedule and manage your ad breaks.
What that was.
So it's called Ad Manager. And the other thing that it's not there now, but what is coming is to help connect, if I do this ad running behavior, what the impact will be to my earnings. That's really where this ultimately goes to.
Okay.
Yeah. Some people might have seen a sneak peek of this a few months ago when a widget accidentally appeared in streamers' dashboards. And there was a lot of conversation about like, what is this thing that's here? So I'm glad we're finally talking about it so people understand what that was and what we were working on at the time when it went out. Ads is with any product.
It's a little bit funny how they're like, we want to do our absolute best not to interrupt any content, but here's this thing that'll run ads automatically.
If Ads Manager is going to be available for everyone, including both partners and affiliates.
Yes, it sure will. Ad Manager, as I said, it's in testing with certain creators now.
I think they also said it will simulate how much you'll earn depending on how many ads you run.
Every streamer that's eligible to run ads will have access to this tool to help manage their ad experience.
Perfect. And you also mentioned there were 3 bullet points you mentioned. One was more control. One was less interrupted. I think something everyone can agree on is that if ads are going to run, we don't want it to disrupt the viewer experience. So how are we thinking about making ads less interruptive going into the future?
Here we go.
Yeah, one thing, it's important to understand that advertisers are paid to interrupt. So we want to make sure that's well understood. Video advertising is the core of what we do. It is interrupted. The only way to not interrupt the content is for it to be a streamer-initiated ad break where it's woven into the content, right? But what we're also saying is we don't, like what I suggested earlier about the ad load that we still feel is quite competitive and a good user experience within live content. We want to add to that to give streamers more options, more types of formats. I've seen a lot of people suggest this on social media, et cetera, where we want to integrate more display advertising, which by its nature is less interruptive. and still provides great value to the 3 customers I mentioned. It may look something like what's suggested here. You'll hear us refer to this as a squeeze back format. This basically brings the video player back about 70% of its original size for some amount of time, gets the message out. The audio and video remain, present, doesn't interrupt the stream, and then it will revert back after the message has been delivered. So this is one format. There's 3 or 4 here of different forms of this. You may imagine like a lower third. So instead of having the L, it may just be across the bottom.
That is a lot better.
And then there will
it is a lot better, but
like with what we call IAB standard units.
99% of the advertising agencies are going to be like, we're not going to use that shit. We're going to do a full screen ad. Okay.
With any new ad product,
they're not going to make custom ads just for Twitch.
A squeeze back that's not a standard ad format that advertisers are already buying. There can be time in terms of
maybe I'm wrong. I don't work in the advertising field, but our community. Don Draper would not make a custom ad
for them to understand the format.
Well, I mean, this is Amazon pitching this.
So you'll often
see
it's true.
Things out there.
And considering they would probably give discounts to do it.
And then
I could see companies like wanting to save money, and I could see it working.
Sherman already did it on my channel.
Conversations with streamers, they're asking for things like,
but that's a specialized sponsored stream
that don't interrupt the video.
That's specialized,
in what they're doing. So
I'm
really excited to see that coming. I'm sure that will also be available to all partners and affiliates when it goes out.
Yeah,
I hope they
absolutely.
do. Because that would be
a lot
better. Yeah.
None of these formats or any of these ideas are segmented by any.
Oh no, Johnson, subs would still not see ads.
The ad formats and the tools in the hands of every streamer.
I mean, I don't think
so. Alternatives.
As long as that box is checked in your dashboard as a streamer, they shouldn't see ads.
Spring, March, April timeframe in 21.
Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how that iterates based on the feedback from both brands and from our creators and viewers. And speaking about brands, the last thing that you mentioned was really wanting to incorporate them into the experience so that they can advertise on Twitch. And when they do that, they really want to take advantage of like this crazy, wonderful place that we love and call home. And that's because we are engaging. It's a live format.
Might be the Charmin mentioned here.
Other services that people may be releasing content on. And really brands want to get involved in that. So what are we building that help them do those things in fun and unique and engaging ways?
Yep, great question. So some of you have seen our new multiplayer ad format.
Do you guys have this yet?
And really what we tried to do here was,
I had it for a minute
earlier,
I had a little button that said
really engaging ad format.
Run the advertiser interactive ad or whatever it's called.
Video ad creative. But
it pops up in your dash or something.
Fun, amazing Twitch community.
Yeah, it popped up as a quick action.
So there's kind of three key parts to this. There's a two-way interaction. So multiplayer ads reward the community for interacting with brands.
The dashboard. I should maybe
look. The brand gets more information beyond just the video was shown or not. And then they also, in this case, the brands get direct market feedback. You'll often see this interaction in the form of a poll, which can ask things like, what's your favorite flavor, or what everything. So it's a really, fun, if you will, engaging content around a brand message, of course. So, and the streamer benefits because they're rewarded when the community engages. In this case, they're rewarded with a number of bits based on the engagement in the community. So we think this is fun. We think this is probably one of the best examples of balancing the needs of streamers.
I think if this is done right, it could be a really big deal.
One important thing I mentioned earlier is if our early data, there's not a ton of these out there yet, but early data shows that on average, if a streamer runs a multiplayer ad versus a 60-second ad break, it's 37% more revenue to the streamer due to that engagement mechanic, community participation. And that will vary depending on how engaged the community is or isn't. So they're also controllable. The streamers deciding when to run them. And, as I said, more engagement, more bits. So you can imagine other things that we might do besides bits in terms of the reward there. And then we've been testing this. It's kind of rolling out. It's now out to 3,000 streamers, which is quite a bit more than it was in the week prior. Mobile,
it's a big number.
Getting mobile users are now able to vote on a poll. That was an important thing. And then finally, I talked about that retention piece earlier. We don't have a ton of data, so I'm not going to share a specific number yet, but the early data shows us that the audience is even more likely to stay with this type of advertising experience than the streamer-initiated standard mid-roll. So we think that's a huge win as well.
What game is that in the background?
All of the things we see today between squeezebacks and multiplayer ads and talking about the ways that we're allowing streamers to have more control over the types of ads they run are really exciting. But I think we would be severely missing if we didn't ask a question here that we hear all the time, which is we're considering all of these types of formats and all of these experiments and all of these things that we're building. But why don't we
ask her in Technique
launch
what they think of
skippable
it.
ads? Why is that not something that we're talking
or
about
in the beta
today?
for that, I should say.
Yeah, we're working on many new formats. The thing that goes often with skippable ads is 6-second ads in terms of a shorter ad format. The skippable ad economics aren't great. We're in terms of what it will be in terms of revenue to the streamer. It's far less. But you can imagine us, continuing. We'll test them. We'll see. We'll find out, what that economics look like in terms of the click-through rate, which will then establish the value to the advertiser. But there's other things like snoozing, maybe allowing viewers to pull their ad watching into a time that's convenient to them.
Yes.
We're going to continue to iterate, talk to the community. But at the end of the day,
snoozing is good. But I have to say,
help streamers earn revenue via advertising.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike, so much. There's a lot of great stuff here. I'm sure that you have plenty of questions.
It's super weird to hear him say, like, we're looking into skippable ads when they've been around for literally like 30 years. It's kind of like, what else do you need to look into?
Well, I mean, it's not like they can snap their fingers.
So before we head into our Q&A, there's one last area.
Just because it's existed on another platform doesn't mean that they're going to snap their fingers and just make it exist here.
And since most of what we're covering today and what we talked about then only covered a select.
Are you really questioning that, Co?
The community asked.
Really?
So now that
someone that's like worked in major corporations is questioning why a major corporation can't like snap their fingers and make something work.
Hard at work delivering new features and updates.
I'm a little surprised they haven't been working on it for 8 years now. Like that's the point I'm making. Like
we just started running ads 6 months ago. How is that surprising to you?
So a few things that really stand out to me were the fact that we released and
we just started mandatorily having running ads. It became a thing 6 months ago.
Which was highly
They've been on the platform forever, but they haven't been a focus.
And audio support.
Really?
And
you're not this dumb, Co. Come on.
Across the globe. We
are you being serious right now?
Number of ways, which is our own broadcast.
Which is an ad platform.
Bringing it to
Mac, not until recently. They haven't pushed it recently.
Across the streaming space and added
it was an ad platform, you dingus.
Chrome Vault,
where's this coming from?
Stream Deck integration, chat overlay.
We'll have to agree to disagree.
Many things that are available.
There's some hateful conduct coming out of me, apparently.
Utilizing Twitch Studio.
I wish they would have talked about
and their
Turbo
communities can interact
and mentioned anything like if you get Turbo, is that going to be still a thing for the foreseeable future? That if you get Turbo, you don't get ads? Because I will push that
per user limits and cooldowns.
Because I've had Turbo and I still don't get ads, which is great. It's what, $7.99 a month, but like still, it's like an ad-free experience.
It's weird they don't mention
it
across the site.
People don't even know Twitch Turbo exists. Like every time I see people with Turbo talk, almost I'm like, people are like, what's Turbo? What is that about? It's like
for the streamers and for the viewers.
Oh man,
excuse me.
Those are just a number of things. It's a tip of an iceberg. I was given an entire list, so I'm challenged to like rattle off as many as I can in a minute. So I just want you to understand that we have a lot of things that we're working on. It includes Hype Train for both web and mobile, celebrations, which included 2 different betas, including commerce interaction, limited time emotes for Hyperscape Pride, holidays, new emotes, including emo auto resizer, tier 2 and tier 3 modifiers, emo analytics,
I've never had
default emotes, which you can use if you don't
have
they
tied to
emotes,
hype trains?
Providing them for you. It's super awesome. Feedback to reporters, so now you get a notice that a report has been filed and a notice when an enforcement action was taken for the reason that you reported. iOS sub tokens so that you can sub on iOS devices. Twitch gift cards, which are not only in USD, they're also recently launched in Europe, so you can buy them in euros. Multi-month subs, including gifting and extended discounts, which came out of September. 2-factor authentication updates, mod view updates, unban requests, and included the subsequent update to allow streamers to opt out of that experience. Multiplayer
I think this is everything they've added this
mod
year.
view counts, a new channel offline page, including schedules and trailers, iOS widgets, which are super awesome at utilizing those. Make sure you have a schedule, esports and music directories, and literally more. I can't even cover because they're like, Aaron, stop talking, go to Q&A, nobody cares.
All right, Q&A.
So
we're going to skip the Q&A. If something comes up that's important, I'm sure we'll see it.
Take the time
I agree. Erin did a great job this time. She carried this pretty much.
I'm biased.
Always a help article for all of those things.
I'll say it for you. She carried
literally so much information you can't consume it all in one sitting.
Wait,
but
I
all of
faded you
those
guys
things
out.
have information on them. If you heard something and you're like, what?
Also, catch Erin on her new single, Twitch Features, coming out later this year.
There we go. Okay. You guys want to discuss any of that, or should we just go to a break? I mean, we kind of voiced our opinions in real time, but I don't know if that necessarily needed to be as long as it was, but I think for some people that information needed to be heard, and for others, not necessarily. The stuff that they announced sounds cool. some of that DMCA stuff seems like, they were talking like Q4. That seems long way out. It'll be a long year in that regard, as it comes to DMCA from my perspective. But, and then the stuff with ads makes a lot of sense. I'll echo what I said twice in the end of that. I wish that's how they led this whole thing on ads, when they started, when it started to become a focal point 6 months or 8 months ago, whenever that was. But
ads are, especially for people that have been here, the longer you've been on Twitch, the more sensitive ads are as a topic.
Sure.
So I couldn't agree more. The way that they went about it, especially like by putting that experiment, as they're calling it, out there, that was like putting your worst foot forward, like without communicating anything about it and just dropping literally hundreds of thousands of more ads on people. Like I couldn't agree more that it would have been so much better if someone came out and was like, look, we need to make more ad money for Papa Amazon or they're going to get pissed.
Sure.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be experimenting over the next few while, and just kind of like been real about it, been upfront about it. And it seems like this guy is good. And honestly, I will say this. It's really good to know that they're moving ads in more creative directions, not just more ads, like ways to keep the show going while an ad is going on. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think people could maybe even a little bit get on board with, like having something, the screen goes on, the show doesn't get interrupted, but they still have ad stuff on the screen. That is something that I think even people that don't like ads could even be like, okay, well, maybe I could deal with this a few times a day.
Maybe.
So
I'm watching. I'm sorry, I got to break in here. I'm watching the closed captions, and they asked the turbo question. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Good. The community asked for like, what about Twitch Turbo or a paid service?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go back and watch that.
Yeah, it looks like Mike is back up there talking. I guess I'll just pay attention to Twitter. Twitter was kind of quiet on this, so I don't know.
Well, to be honest, like you remember a while back when NVIDIA like promoted that big thing and then they put on the presentation and it was basically just like a lecture on graphics technology. I feel that's kind of like what happened with this, where they were like, we're going to do a town hall, which is generally a little bit more pompy and a little bit more angled towards viewers. And instead they kind of like went in depth in things for streamers and things like that. So it's kind of, I definitely think almost every section could have been condensed, made more concise, and like just delivered the information instead of having it be like a conversation about it. Just because I think that's what a lot of people watching wanted. They were like, tell us the details. What's going to change? What's going to happen? What are you working on? Let's move on.
Yeah.
Like let's get back to why we're on Twitch, which is, to be blunt, not watching stuff like that. So yeah. Maybe next time a little bit more.
I do like that though. I don't know how much this is kind of a larger conversation, but what we just saw compared to like the TwitchCon keynote, I kind of like what we just saw because there's so much nuance when it comes to things on this platform because people care about this platform, both at Twitch and also viewers and streamers and all that, that like without the nuance, saying things like Emmett just going out there and saying like one bold statement and that's it. When it was like kind of a nuanced statement in a lot of ways. And then that's like what he gets stuck to for, I don't know, however long it's been. I guess they both have their place, but my preference is kind of what we just saw. Was a little bit long-winded, totally agree there. But a conversation around that type of stuff is better in my mind.
I think there's a middle ground. I see where you're coming from. And I do agree that approach is better than the one-line approach. But I also think that if it gets too long, it gets into like corporate speak and it starts diluting the message.
Yeah.
So I think giving it enough room to breathe so you can actually get some genuine communication in there while at the same time not making it so long where you're just like, oh, here, good, another boardroom presentation. Like there's a nuanced middle ground there that I think needs to get hit.
Yeah. So
this time I feel was a little bit too I think I'm just going to start using the word corpo in everyday speech. This time it was a little too corpo. But at the same time, I will say I do prefer that over, like you said, just the like ignoring it.
Yeah.
And like acting. It was the year of music. Moving on. Yeah, that, like none of that. Like it's better to talk about it, but at the same time, they a little bit better job finding the middle ground.
Yeah, I agree. Zeke,
I would have liked it to be more like town hall style in that, even if, and probably. So they would have, they would have reviewed it, the questions beforehand, but I would have liked to have seen like viewers and streamers like being made available to send in videos of themselves asking questions and stuff like that. Is that, you shook your head. Is that like just a terrible idea or something?
In my mind, my stomach got anxiety for the lawyers watching. So like,
pre-rolled. I think I kind of like getting a little bit of audience participation would have been a nice thing. But what I will say, I wish they would have defined sections better for streamer, for viewer. I think that could have been really cool. So like a splash screen for streamers, and then like a bunch of stuff for us, and then it's like first for viewers. Like, let's bring them into this.
That's true.
So it's not just like this gray area of which one are we talking to. And I noticed throughout almost the entire thing, like many viewers were like, "Do we need to pay attention to this part? Like,
totally.
This is for us." It's kind of like that would have been nice to talk to the viewer a little bit more during that.
Yeah.
I like the direction that you were talking about, Zeke, for sure. It's a good direction. Don't know how they do it properly, but would have been nice.
Yeah, I would agree. To go back to what you were saying, like using content creators, I think, and this is, I can actually ask you personally, because you interviewed Emmett on stage at TwitchCon. Did you feel, granted you have very thick skin, so this might sway your answer a little bit, did you feel that because you were up there interviewing Emmett, that you got feedback from viewers that maybe have never watched your stream or anything like that you were a sellout, that you were, a man, like the man or anything like that? Or was it fine? Because that's another thing that I would think they would have to worry about.
Yep. I definitely got a little bit of that. A little bit of like, a little bit of flack for being like, a fanboy or like going too easy or whatever like that. But like, it was a fairly constructed interview segment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will say, like, there was a couple of questions that I got, because I put out the feelers on Twitter. I was like, hey, you got any question for Emmett? And there was a couple of them that I was like, they're never going to answer those. Never going to address that shit. And a couple of them got through when I saw like the run of show. I was like, whoa. Actually, like one of the last ones got through. I can't remember exactly what it was dealing with, but I was super surprised because the person started off the conversation, or started off the reply with like, I'm never going to ask this, and I'm fucking pissed, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I think I answered them, so like, don't be such a negative Nancy about it. They're like, all right, my question is this then. And they did it, and they answered, like, that was one of the questions I got in. So I was kind of surprised about that.
Yeah. I mean, at some point,
I did get some flack for being like a mouthpiece for Twitch and stuff like that. But I'm okay with that, because like, I'm not going to sit here and like denounce the thing that's given me like a dream job and like financial security, and the only friends I've made in the past like 8 years have been from the fucking website.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I think all in all, they're still going. They're still doing a Q&A. So if you want to hop over to that, by all means, that's over at /Twitch. We'll probably get the Cliff Notes version of it if there's anything announced. I think it's mostly just the normal questions that you see and the normal.
Oh, and my girlfriend. No, I want to mention my girlfriend. I didn't want to forget saying like I met my girlfriend here too.
I thought you were saying I was supposed to say that. I was very confused.
No, I said like all of my friends and the money and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, and the person I love that I live with, like her too, I guess.
Man, that was like an after the buzzer save.
Yeah.
Like double OT fades back.
We were in the credits section, and Zeke just stumbles onto the set. My girlfriend.
Wait! Don't go to break yet.
Oh man, that was good. That was good. All right. Well, let's take a break, because we do have to take that ad break. We've also been going for 2 hours. I need to use the restroom. And then we'll come back and spend the rest of the show, about 45 minutes or so, on Cyberpunk, because there's a lot to talk about.
The Game Awards stuff. I didn't watch any of the Game Awards. Or not. That's good.
Okay, you know what? There wasn't that much.
That right there was everything I needed to know about the game. Let's talk about the Game Awards.
Well, I mean, there wasn't
stuff
to talk about, but
I say we just lie to Co then and tell them just random winners.
Oh, you're talking about the winners. I thought you were talking about the announcements, or both.
Well, anything. I honestly, I didn't see any of it. I got a few announcements. I know about the winners and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I saw Hades won a big one. Good for them. But I was just wondering, like, overall impressions from people who watched them all would have,
Sure. Yeah.
I know a lot of people watching now were with me in Cyberpunk. So
cool. Yeah. We'll definitely talk about it when we come back. So let's take a break. we'll be right back with more drop frames right after this. We'll see you guys then. All right, guys, quick break, and we'll be back at it right after this. Thanks for sticking around with us. See you soon. Nice, Barry. Nice. God damn it, Barry. Why is it doing this? Okay. You guys get to stick on this screen. Barry's doing that same shit that it was doing the other day.
I do not know as much about human relationships as I thought.
Hey, was there just a Cyberpunk patch that came out, chat? Or was I trolled on Twitter? I'm just curious what it addressed. Looks like it was old Gene trolling me. No patch that I know of. Oh, 1.05. If it's 1.05, then that's new. Oh, I wonder what it has.